Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. We have a lot of business to attend to today and some very interesting and juicy stuff inside. Quick preview on what we're going to get into, then we'll zoom in for further detail. This is where we're going to start today, talking about a new poll. You can see this puppy is now out, and it's basically saying a large portion of Democrats, including just the liberals, so it's not just the very liberals, there's also a sizable portion of the liberals who are saying that violence, political violence in particular, is always or usually acceptable. So we've known that since, now they're shooting our top people in the neck at public events where they were just holding a microphone. But we'll go through this poll and then kind of juxtapose it with a bunch of other stuff that is out there, including this clip over that was on Piers Morgan. This one came out from Destiny. You may have heard of him. He is a big lefty streamer. And he was basically saying, well, shouldn't have elected Donald Trump. If you elected Trump, now Charlie Kirk is dead. So if you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, is what he said, Donald Trump shouldn't have been president. So it kind of feels like we deserved it. And if we continue to do what we're going to do, they're going to kill more of us or something. So strange stuff happening there. But we'll go through the poll. We'll see what the latest is on it. And then we'll actually compare and contrast some of the Democrat statements now, because a lot of them have come out and said, well, we always want political peace. We've never called anybody any bad words at all, ever. We're just innocent. And don't get mad at us. Well, here's PB&J Pritsker. And he came out, and we've got a little compendium here assembled by Apoctaz over on X that says, oh, this dude's basically a liar. So we'll go through that. We've got more reaction to a lot of this. So if all these Gen Z groups or all these lib groups or whatever, the crosstabs will show us in a second, whatever is happening, what do we do about it? Well, Pam Bondi came out, and man, this clip has gotten a lot of attention. So we'll listen to it together. She's talking about hate speech in America. There's free speech and hate speech. We're all going, oh, gosh. Here we go. So we're not exactly sure what she means by it in this clip, but then she came out and clarified it. So we'll take a look at what she's talking about. Is it actually hate speech, or is it actually a crime? Is it threatening and harassment and intimidation, which are all already criminalized? So anyways, we'll go through it. We've got that. She came out. She had a bunch of reaction yesterday. We also had Harmeet Dillon is coming out talking about people celebrating the Kirk assassination. And so just a bunch of stuff. We've got Trump reacting to Pam Bondi this morning. Rand Paul's talking about this. You have a right to free speech. You don't have a right to continuous employment. Hello. So even Rand Paul gets it. Now, Cash was out today also. Cash is testifying right now in front of Congress. I've been listening to a lot of it. A lot of it's kind of a joke. But we did have one good clip that I thought I opened as I was sitting down. But we'll get that pulled up. But we've got Cash Patel coming in hot in the Senate today, Senate Judiciary Committee today. And so trying to figure out what I did with that clip. Anyways, I'll find it. So we've got that. We've got a bunch of other stuff to get to, because now there's this huge report that has come out from a bunch of people, including Data Republican, telling us about this militant militia trans group, which has basically gone dark. They've hidden, deleted a bunch of stuff. They're like, oh, we don't exist anymore. You're like, oh, we know you do. We can see the photos seared into our brains forever. So they even have the 6 principles here from the armed queers of Salt Lake City, the armed queers shooting rainbows out of their firearms. All right. And they're communists. They want the end of the bourgeois, which is straight out of Karl Marx. Is Communist Manifesto. So we'll go through and see who these armed queers are and what's going on with them. That's how they identify themselves, so it's fine with us to call them that. So the armed queers are out there arming up and now deleting a bunch of things, and Data Republican put together this mega thread that I wanted to share with you, explaining who they are and how they may have been funded by the State Department of America. So, of course, right? Now, Elle is amazing, and she's also saying, this is kind of how these people talk. There's like this secretive, pamphlet subculture that exists. And so she gave us a good example of that. We'll bring you up to speed on it. And just a bunch of stuff. Data Republican doing great work. Utah Trans Militia, you can see, started deleting everything. Uh-oh, the profile you're looking for doesn't exist anymore. Oh, is that because you're co-conspirators in an assassination? Yeah, maybe. So we've got that. We had this one and more. I think I may have put Cash over here. Yeah, here's Cash. So we also got Cash getting into it with Josh Hawley. So he's testifying today. So we'll have some highlights of that. Then quick update on Lisa Cook, because she survives for the time being. Now we think this case is going to go up to the Supreme Court of the United States, but Lisa Cook, and she just won in the Court of Appeals in the DC circuit, and we'll go through it. It's probably going to be appealed and probably reversed, but we'll go through it. The dissent, I think, is the best summation of exactly what's happening here. So we'll get up to speed on what's happening in the Court of Appeals over there, because the Federal Reserve meeting is like soon. I don't remember exactly when, but very soon. Then we'll talk about Fani, because Fani lost. Oh, no. Georgia now declining the Supreme Court to hear her case. That was her last gasp. It was the final call before the cruise ship left. And she lost. So we'll go through it. We'll see what happened over there. We also saw that Trump was commenting about this, saying she should be in jail. All that's true. And Steve Sadow was talking about this along with Jeffrey Clark. And so we'll make sure we see what Jeffrey Clark had to say about it. But it's a beautiful day, my friends. Welcome back. I hope that your rest was outstanding. We got an early show today because today is Joey's last day here. He's been on here, I think, for I don't know how long, but a while. And he now must go home. And so I'm going to miss him. But hopefully he stops by and has a little cameo before we wrap it up on the day. But we'll also have an after party today. So if you're a member, thanks for being a member. Thanks for supporting our work here. Stick around after the show. We'll debrief, see what you have to say about the show and what else is percolating out there on the interwebs. And we appreciate you supporting us with a subscribe and a like if your thumbs work. We also saw this. So today, this was a big, we were waiting for this. And I'm like, well, maybe they'll do it in the morning, you know, but no, they're going to wait till 5 o'clock. So Tyler Robinson, the man accused of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk, has court this afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And he'll show up. So about, you know, probably, what is that? 2 or 3 Utah time. I think they're on Mountain. Robinson will also be appointed an attorney if he's not yet retained one himself. The hearing will follow by a press conference by Jeff Gray. And we're not sure yet if he's going to get any federal charges. So that's the latest from him. And yep, Cash was testifying today. We've got some clips on that. And they're going to be announcing the charges at a news conference at 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so that actually might be coming up soon. The news conference will also precede a court hearing, and then they're expecting aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, and obstruction of justice in connection with the shooting. So we'll zoom in on all of that coming up. But here's the interesting news on the day. A new poll shows that liberals actually support political violence at a much higher level than Republicans do or ever would. We've got this poll that came out from YouGov, and shout out to Ryan Saavedra, who has flagged this one for us. And he gives us the highlights. He basically says, look, it's okay. Democrats, if you're very liberal, 24% of them think that it can always or usually be acceptable to commit political violence. It's insane. And there's a bunch of evidence to support this, as we've been chronicling here over the last week. Now, most Americans, here's what the poll says, say it's unacceptable to be happy about public figures' deaths, you know, because we're not monsters. But younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to call it acceptable. We'll zoom in on it, but here's the highlight. It says, do you generally question for you? Do you generally consider it to be acceptable or unacceptable for a person to be happy about the death of a public figure they oppose? Should they be happy that your political enemy has been killed or murdered? The death. U.S. adults generally, 8% say, yeah, it's always or usually acceptable. You know, it's like it's like 8%, which is insanely high. But okay, now who's dragging that number up? It's the libs and the moderates. Look at the numbers. So when you break it down by political ideology, very liberal, if you're very liberal, there's a bunch of them out there, 24% of them say it's always or usually acceptable. Always or usually acceptable. So 1/4 of the entire very liberal contingent says it's okay. Now, there's another 20%. So let's not let these not sures get away with this. because we know what that means. What do you mean you're not sure? Is it wrong to murder somebody? Like, did your mom teach you anything? Like, do you know do you have any moral compass at all? Is it okay to celebrate the death of your political opponents? No, we don't celebrate murder here. All right. No, it's a pretty easy answer. Oh, I'm not sure. Should I be happy or not? I don't know. I'm just a dumb, very liberal person. I have no idea. So you could easily just bundle them up with the always or usually acceptable crew, right? So you might be saying 44%, not 24% of them would at least maybe be nonplussed about it. Okay, well, he's dead, whatever. I mean, I'm not like celebrating and making TikTok videos about it and telling everybody in my office that I think that they should die too by inference. It's a sizable number. So that's just on the top line. Then you've got the liberal contingent too. 10% of liberals who identify as liberals still say it's always or usually acceptable. So you add in the 17, now you're at 27%. Moderates even are like, yeah, maybe sometimes. We're moderates. But so we'll only endorse political murder sometime, which is just incredible. But when you go back down to the conservatives, it's like non-existent because we understand the nature of self-governance. And once you start killing each other, things get bad pretty quickly. And so we're not interested in that. Ideally, we don't want that conflict to happen. It's never okay. Look at these numbers. Always or usually unacceptable. Conservative, 91%. Very conservatives are a little bit less, right? So it's still 90%. And most American, this is just, something that I think we've all experienced, even just anecdotally. You can kind of feel it in the water. As you talk to these people, they're frothing at the mouth. Spittle forming on Keith Olbermann's sign over here. And we all get it from time to time. But for Keith, it's like a feature, He's like, hold on a second. Is the camera ready? Hold on. Let me work up my spittle in my cheeks. It gets it going for you. So most Americans across the political spectrum, most say that political violence is never justified. But younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to disagree. It's the same trend. Yes, violence can sometimes be justified. You've got 25% of very liberals, 17% of liberals, and conservatives are, again, saying no. And it's interesting, actually, there's kind of like an inverse relationship, right? The more conservative you get, the less inclined you are to justified political violence. Whereas if you're very liberal, so like the further right you go, like the more anti-violent you are, the further right. The further left you go, the more in favor of political violence you are. You can just see it right there in the chart. So why is that? Why is one ideology bending towards peace and the other is bending towards revolution and murder of their political opponents? We just had an election. They lost. They're crybabies. They never like to lose anything. So they set up a Russia collusion hoax the first time. Then they rigged it the second election. Then they created January 6th and all these things and puffed that up along with BLM and COVID and rigged 51 intelligence idiot letters and all the things, CIA all over the place, changing the election rules because of COVID and emergency and due process for voters and all the crap, right, that they just made up, stealing it from the state legislators. And so this has been observed for quite some time, and we're seeing it actually out there all over the place. And if you've missed it, we've created a Substack on this where we've got just one post over on our Substack, and it is linked down over there. You just search my name if you go over there, and you'll see that we've got a whole compendium down here of all the violence. And I've got a lot to add to this, okay? Like I've been adding every day. I'm like, oh yeah, forgot about that. Oh yeah, forgot about that. Oh yeah, forgot about that. And remember, like even during COVID, they thought that you should be in jail. Lock the unvaccinated at home. Send the unvaccinated to quarantine camps. Like they're psychos, man. So lock you up, take your kids, imprison you. And if you get shot, well, you deserved it. Maybe you shouldn't have been preaching hate, whatever, okay? So the list goes on, and I got a bunch to add to this, like the Waukesha stuff. But online, okay, so we're asking ourselves, what's happening with the youth and the very liberal? Where are they, where are they going to get their information? And this one is a clip that's going around from Hassan Piker, and I'm not even going to play it because he's talking about, like, spilling people's guts all over the streets, like literally. It's like, I want to see their intestines out. You're like, oh my God, what a lunatic. So, that is something that he said. And then Piers Morgan brought on a bunch of people yesterday. What's up? Shout out to Jack Posobiec over in the house, getting into it with a bunch of other people. And we've got Destiny who is a big liberal streamer. And a lot of lefties watch this dude. And here's what he had to say about all of this on the interwebs.
I think that liberals need to wake up and finally realize that if they're not willing to do it, it will never come down. If you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, Donald Trump shouldn't have been president for the second term.
Wow.
Every time he's in office, this happens. People joked about when Biden came in, it was so boring, nothing was going on. 7 out of 10 of the largest protests in American history have happened under Donald Trump. I think that liberals...
Yeah, I guess he's probably talking about like BLM and those things, which were major protests. I mean, BLM caused $2 billion of damage, right? So, and I think maybe his point is that Trump creates an environment or something. So in other words, it's not like you elected Trump, we're going to keep killing your people. I mean, if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, then you could say he's just saying, well, it, increases the political violence, it increases the tone, the tension that exists is ratcheted up because President Trump is President Trump. But it feels like a justification for what's happening. Okay, so you elected Trump. These are the consequences. So because you pick somebody we don't like, we now get to kill your people. And America voted for Trump, right? They say you have to believe every election constantly. So no matter what happens, you got to believe it. It's democracy. You can't challenge democracy. So now we've got individuals, pseudo endorsing it. And you can read that, a couple of different ways. But I would suggest that it is an endorsement of what we're seeing. In other words, you're reaping what you sow, you're getting what you deserved, and it's in alignment with the polls, right? So it's all over the place. It's just basically what they're talking about. And if you want to go watch the Hassan clip, go check it out. He's literally talking about spilling their guts on the streets. You're like, okay, that's great. So the YouGov poll goes on, and you can read the full thing over here at YouGov. They've got a bunch of different, questions about political assassinations, and people were saying, how big of a problem do you think political violence is in the U.S.? So 67% of Republicans after the assassination of Charlie Kirk goes up. Even Democrats are saying it's a pretty big problem, 58%. But when you're asking after certain assassinations, like they ask it in conjunction, there's a political bent to it. After the assassination attempt on Josh Shapiro, they burned his house down. Republicans weren't as interested in that as the Democrats were. Paul Pelosi, same split there. Yeah, and that was a weird case in general. And I think they kind of try to blame that on right-wingers. I mean, it's not, again, we don't want political violence at all, but it's interesting how that was like a right-wing framed attack when that dude, we saw where he was living. He was like BLM flags and like pride flags and all the stuff all over the place. So, it always gets contorted. I think that the better, safer approach is just to say, no, there should not be any political violence at all, unless you want this tit for tat to continue to escalate. And we obviously don't. But the shares of different groups that say political violence is a very big problem. Older Americans have been more concerned about political violence. You can see these numbers are all going up. How many Americans say that violence can be justified? Well, the libs say they love it. We looked at the charts, and a lot of it's over here. I think I have it on dark mode, so we can't see a lot of it. But here you can see there's a lot more details over there if you want to read about it over at YouGov. Check it out. All the polls and results are there. But we continue on because it's not just some of the online social media influencers who are, pseudo endorsing political violence, kind of like, you made us unhappy, so now you're going to face the consequences. But we also see this backtracking from a lot of people. And yesterday we were listening to some CNN anchor. It's like, well, we're just trying to have a conversation with you, Congressman Timberchet. So stop getting so ornery with us. Now, tell me why Republicans and President Trump are responsible for the murder. You're like, what? Don't act like you're a fair, objective, nonpartisan person if you're framing your questions like that. And then Tim says, you're the problem, lady. She's, well, I'm just trying to talk to you. Why are you a murderer? Like, what? All right, lunatics. So PB&J Pritsker out there, who has been out recently with this newfound kind of sophistry, really, explaining that he never said any of these things and he never framed it this way. He would never call anybody a Nazi. Well, we saw somebody go back to the tapes. Apoc Taz over on X has shared this one with us, and here is what this montage looks like.
That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
Everything that he has done has been tearing down constitutional democracy. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany. It doesn't take very long to tear apart a constitutional republic. Indeed, the Nazis did it in 53 days. And
Nazis.
Our democracy is almost as fragile. And we're seeing it right now.
Trump.
The dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Support Trump, says the tweet. Here's a couple tweets. He even put it in writing, this maniac. Support Trump, PB&J posted. We could be like the good citizens who voted for a tameable Hitler to get things back on track. A tameable Hitler. Okay, so Hitler murdered a bunch of people, and so Trump is going to do the same and come kill you. So maybe that's justifying, right? You don't want Hitler to come kill you, so maybe somebody should take him out. We get Thomas Matthew Crooks. We get Ryan Ruth. We get Tyler Robinson shooting Charlie Kirk, who's a very close friend of President Trump. PB&J said, this unhinged disgrace to the presidency, Trump, just openly sympathize with Nazis on national television. We have a Nazi party here? Like officially? When did that happen? I don't remember that happening. Is he talking about like maybe the J6ers? What was this? August 15th, 2017? No, not even. So PB&J was going crazy when Trump was not even in office for a year. Look at that post. August 15th, 2017. They're just psychos, man. They just can't. It's like a broken record. Nazi, 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 Nazi for decades. So here's another one. You can see when neo-Nazis marched on Charlottesville chanting Jews will not replace us, Donald Trump called them very fine people. That's a lie. He disavowed them totally. He's a liar as well. And now he says it's all a lie. It's not a lie. Donald Trump is just a liar. Now you can read the transcripts. Everybody has confirmed that's a lie, PB&J. We know what the truth is, but he's a liar in addition to a slanderer. Now, PB says, the way Donald Trump praises and romanticizes Hitler is unhinged and disturbing and disqualifying. Has Trump ever come out and said, like, I love Hitler and he's amazing and he's a great leader or something like that? Not that I've heard. He's a dictator in waiting. Wow. We know exactly what he'll do if he's in power again. It cannot happen. From PB&J, here's another one. In his first term, Trump said Hitler did some good things. In January, Elon proudly gave a Nazi salute. Yesterday, Rep. Self quoted Joseph Goebbels, the chief Nazi propaganda minister on the House floor. They know what they're doing. So PB&J, right? He's like drawing. He's like, here's the evidence. Here's facts. You know, this is why I think that they're literal Nazis. Okay. So that goes on. Dude's a liar, and he just got called out, as you could see. So maybe he should, well, he should do a lot of things. So we'll leave that there. But all right, so that's PB&J. Now, question is, what do we do about all this? And should you be free to spread your hate? Should you be free to say that Charlie Kirk deserved it or whatever you want to say, whatever monstrous speech wants to come out of your disgusting mouth? That's fine. Of course, this is America. Call people fascists, call people Nazis, call people communists, do whatever you want. But once that starts crossing a certain line, it's not speech anymore. It becomes either a conspiracy to commit violence, or there's a whole subcategory of statutes that are about words that are words in action, essentially. So if you are calling and threatening and harassing somebody in your local state and making threats and causing them to have a reasonable apprehension and all the things, all the elements of the statute, you can be charged with a crime for that. And of course, you can be charged with crimes for making threats to public officials. People go to prison for a long time for that, even if they're just a drunken phone call. So you have to be extra cautious about that. So, you know, when you're making those calls, just don't let it get out of control, because they will refer you and prosecute you and imprison you for that, right? These are called threats and intimidation. They're already illegal. Now, we also have this new category that has been invented largely by the left, which is called hate speech. And that has been applied to us in all sorts of different ways. If we come here and you say, you know, trans, you know, freakoids or whatever, like, jail him for that. I'm allowed to be offensive. I'm allowed to be not politically correct. I'm allowed to irritate a bunch of people. That's fine. This is America. Welcome. Can't prosecute people for that. And what we're starting to see now is Pam Bondi use this phrase in a very curious manner. Let's listen to what she has to say. She was over on the Katie Miller show, and this is our Attorney General.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech, and then there's hate speech.
Okay, so there's really just, free speech. It's really just the First Amendment. There's not, you have the right to freedom of speech, except if it's hateful. Like, that's not in there at all. And it's been written in there, and it's disgusting, that we're starting to use that language. Like, some speech can be hate speech. We already have a whole category of stuff that is threatening and intimidating. And we've got a whole compendium of case law on this. We do not need them to water this down, because if they ever retake power again, God forbid, they'll use it against us. They'll say, oh, that's Nazi language, you fascist. And then they'll censor us. They've already done it. And by the way, they're free to do that. Like, YouTube was free to demonetize us. It's their platform, not ours. They're free to censor our videos. It's their platform, not ours. I think we should have a digital Bill of Rights as well, so that our free speech can be extended to these online platforms that are really public forums that have replaced a lot of the other public forums. But that's the game, right? You say what you need to say, and you face the consequences of it. And you're not entitled to a job. You're not entitled to all of these things. But we got to be very careful with the language. And so we listen to that and go, okay, this is pretty curious. So what is she going to do? Is she going to go arrest people for hate speech? Because that doesn't seem appropriate. But she clarifies it's not just about the speech. So Pam Bondi posted this bright and early this morning, trying to get ahead of this thing. Says, all right, look, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. All right. Now that's an action. Okay. That's an acting. You're acting. You're doing something. You're not just saying something. You're doing something. So I guess you could call it hateful speech that people have, but it's not really a legally cognizable category. So it's just regular speech that turns into a threat of violence, right? That's all it is. Don't have to have this middleman hate speech kind of thing in the middle, because they were saying that anything you say is hate speech, then that goes into stochastic terrorism, so that your hate speech now can become criminalized, right? So that they can imprison you, because if you're saying this, you're inciting violence by, saying whatever we say here. And then that can lead to your prosecution, because it's an incitement of violence just for sharing an opinion. And these are very fluid definitions, and they've used them aggressively against us historically. But that's different than threats of violence. Like, you're not allowed to do that. People go to prison every day for that. So it's a crime, she says. It's not protected by the First Amendment. She's right. Now, it's for far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. And that era is over. Okay, so, again, there's incitement rules, there's case law. Is it meant to create an imminent lawlessness from the person speaking? Does it cause that imminent lawlessness? So she gives us some U.S. code. She says, under 18 U.S. code, section 875C, it is a federal crime to transmit, any communication containing any threat to kidnap any person or any threat to injure the person of another. And likewise, these other codes make it a felony to threaten public officials, as we've mentioned. They really protect themselves, too. Members of Congress or their families. You threaten a public official at all, man, they don't play. So you cannot call for someone's murder. You cannot swat a member of Congress. You cannot dox a conservative family and think it will be brushed off as free speech. But see, a lot of those are kind of incitement. So, calling for somebody's murder and elimination, I think it kind of depends on that. I think you could say, I think somebody should be, eliminated. That's my opinion. I think that they should be eliminated. Like, you have that, you have the free speech to do that. When you start to act on it, or when that becomes like an imminent active threat, then that's when it crosses the line. and it becomes part of a plot, not just free speech, which is action, not just talking. So as reprehensible as it is, and by the way, we want people to be able to speak about this stuff so that we know who they are, so that there are social consequences to this. Says you cannot dox a conservative family and brush that off as free speech. These acts are punishable crimes, and every single threat will be met with the full force of the law. Yeah, and so it's like, what conservative family? Like any regular conservative family, or like a member of Congress conservative family? Anyways, so we'll see. We'll see if she charges anybody. Free speech protects ideas, debate, and even dissent, but it does not and will never protect violence. Yeah, we have a whole incitement standard, right? What is incitement? Is, you know, if you're outside, I'm pretty sure it's the Brandenburg test. I should look this up. Brandenburg incitement test. Yeah, here it is. Let me just give you the details on it from Cornell University. And like, here's the standard. Here, like the Supreme Court has already come out with tests on this. So it's the Brandenburg test. It says, established Brandenburg versus Ohio, 1969. Can inflammatory speech that is intending to advocate illegal action, like murdering somebody, can that be restricted? This is a KKK case from 1969. Gave a speech to a rally to rally his fellow Klansmen, and after listing a number of derogatory racial slurs, he said it's possible that there might have to be some vengeance taken. It's possible there might need to be some vengeance taken. The test determined that the government may prohibit speech advocating the use of force or crime if the speech satisfies both elements of this two-part test. One, the speech is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action. So the person who's making the speech, are you focusing it with the purpose of creating this lawlessness from the speaker's perspective? And then from an objective perspective, is what that person saying likely to actually incite that lawlessness or to produce the action which the speaker is advocating for? And so you just apply those, that standard. Say, oh, in these other cases, they applied this. An Indiana University protester said, "We'll take the effing street later." Or again, the Supreme Court said his profanity was protected under Brandenburg. It's nothing more, as the speech amounted to nothing more than advocacy of a legal action at some indefinite future time. Okay, so there's like a nexus, a proximity to this. So you can even, you're protected. If it's in the future, maybe we should do something. The court said since there was no evidence or rational inference that his words were intended to produce and likely to produce imminent disorder, those words could not be punished by the state because they have a tendency to lead to violence, right? We have a lot of free speech protections here. You might disagree with this decision, but it's already fleshed out. We've already got a test for that. So if you're kind of crossing the line, then you're entering into criminal territory because it's causing some, it's an action that's causing some harm rather than just you sharing an opinion. So they fleshed this out before. So Pam Bondi is now going to be working her way through this. And I don't exactly understand what her position is, quite frankly, but she explained some of this as well. And here was Pam Bondi over on with Hannity last night.
That's horrific. It's free speech, but you shouldn't be employed anywhere if you're going to say that. And employers, you have an obligation to get rid of people. You need to look at people who are saying horrible things, and they shouldn't be working with you. Businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. We can prosecute you for that. I have Harmeet Dillon right now in our civil rights unit looking at that immediately, that Office Depot had done that. We're looking at that. But Sean, that's her.
All right. So yeah, this is also interesting because we also have free association rights in this country. And I think Charlie Kirk was getting a lot of criticism from some people for his questioning of the Civil Rights Act and how that minimizes or even maybe unconstitutional based on your free association rights that are guaranteed in our First Amendment, which is a very extensive debate that actually happens in the legal, land. It's not really popular. You can't really talk about that stuff, but it's a constitutional question. Was an act something that is superior than the First Amendment that's in the Constitution? And how do they conflict with each other? Even if you're interested in some of the outcomes that maybe the Civil Rights Act brought, but you still have this question. And we've already had this debate as well. And so, you know, Pam, I think, is maybe half right, but she's kind of distinguishing, right? You're not entitled to a job. Of course not. If you're an Office Max and you want to exercise your free speech as an employee there and not print a Charlie Kirk vigil poster that just had Charlie Kirk with his hand up in the air, if that's your prerogative, that's fine. But you're not entitled to work at Office Max. You don't get a job there indefinitely. You can go somewhere else. But the next question would be, what if you were a private printer, right? And you're a private printer and they come in, somebody comes in and says, print this poster. Because we already had this battle with the bake that cake. You remember that? Hey, we're a gay couple and we want you to come in here and make our big gay wedding cake. He's like, we're not going to be doing that. Sorry. And they said, you have to bake our cake. And of course, that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And they said, no, you don't have to bake the cake, right? Because it's a free speech problem. And it's a free association problem. And so now, are we like reversing that? Like, are we going to have to bake the cakes again? Or what's going on with this? Like, if you have to print the thing, are you going to have to bake the cake because somebody else says that that is a civil right, right? So we're getting into some very, you know, interesting things. I think that there is not really a necessity to get all crazy and like creative with this. Like, it's not, you don't have to be that creative, okay? There's already a gazillion laws on the books. Everything is criminalized. And so you can use the full force of the law without perverting these phrases and these concepts and kind of changing how everything works. All we want you to do is just enforce the law as it is. Just do it aggressively. Just form your own stupid committees, subpoena everybody, do whatever you need to do, just like the Liz Cheneys and the Nancy Pelosi's did. There's a ton of stuff. We don't need to create a new category of hate crimes or these other, you know, like those employment decisions, the pressure of the public, fire those people, get rid of the, you know, lieutenant, whatever. All appropriate, but we'll see what is ultimately happening. I think they're honestly trying to figure out what their strategy is, and it's not really solidified that well yet, but hopefully it does get firmed up so that we know what the legal and the constitutional framework is for all of this. But again, we don't want the perversion of our fundamental rights to happen when it's not even necessary, right? We can accomplish our ends appropriately. Now, of course, Pam Bondi mentioned Harmeet Dillon, and here was Harmeet explaining what's going on over from the civil division.
Quick one. There have been people calling for more violence on the left, violence against conservatives, including against the founder of Libs of TikTok. I'm just wondering if that is something that you are aware of and how you plan to, because this is a fast-moving situation. How do you plan to keep up with this problem as it evolves over the next couple of days and weeks?
Well, I'm keeping up with it. As I mentioned, we have several lawyers dedicated to this in the Civil Rights Division who are part of the larger DOJ team. We're in constant contact with the FBI on the ground, the ATF, all the criminal investigations that are going on there. I personally am responsible. I'm the top federal hate crime prosecutor in the United States. So that's the main angle we look at, but we also look at some other angles that are covered under civil rights. I can't talk about the investigation. I know there have been some leaks out there. I think those are really unfortunate. And everybody doesn't get, I know there's been a demand by the, social media to release all the details immediately. I don't think that's actually productive. We don't want to tip off criminals of exactly what we're investigating. There is an Antifa angle here. And Rob, you may know that I've been actively involved in going after Antifa in court since 2019. I've represented Andy No. And so that's an angle that we're looking at.
Andy No? Is that how you say his name? All right. So, yeah, it's an interesting statement. Obviously, I think the hate crimes prosecution team, whatever it is, they're just crimes. You don't have to call them hate crimes because then you start to create this, a white guy murdering a white guy and the white guy hates the other white guy. That's not a hate crime. But if somebody else is just a different skin color, that's a hate crime. And so then that turns into like enhanced sentencing across it's just a crime. Okay. One standard. We don't need special victims. We don't need special perpetrators. Just enforce the law equally across the board. So we don't have all these subcategories of, that's a hate crime, but that's not. This is a white dude, but that's a black guy. So now we have to, have all of these different divisions in our legal system. It's ridiculous. So I don't know why we're still playing in that framework. Okay. We run the government. So you just get rid of the hate crimes division and you just prosecute crimes. Anyways, so that's from the DOJ, man. And I hope they I hope that they understand where we're at. Okay, Charlie Kirk just got assassinated. There's large portions of the very libs and the other libs, regular libs, who say political violence is justified. And we hope there's, a meeting of the moment from the DOJ. Now, here's what Trump said. He was asked about this by Jonathan Karl out today. Mr. President, what do you think about Pam Bondi and this hate speech stuff?
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
She'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech.
No, it's just like libel and defamation and slander, and they're saying bad things about you. There's already laws for it.
So maybe
and they settled with you based on those laws.
I have to go after you. Look, we want everything to be fair. It hasn't been fair. And the radical left has done tremendous damage to the country, but we're fixing it. We have right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. And remember, 1 year ago, our country was dead. And now Washington, D.C. is fixed, and I fixed it. The mayor was fine. The mayor was just fine, okay? The mayor had the sick city for many years. He's been mayor for many years. The one that fixed it was me and my people, and it is so safe. You should take your beautiful wife tonight and have dinner down there. You won't be shot, you won't be accosted, you won't even be looked at incorrectly by anybody. Washington, D.C. is safe. Now we're going to Memphis, where it's pretty rough, to put it mildly, and then we're going to have to go. A friend of mine who is a...
Yeah, and so that's the president, so it's kind of a form of hate speech, and again, like, we get just very loose with these words, and that becomes a problem because then they turn into the hate crimes prosecutorial division. And they came out, man, we lived through this, okay? This is why I think we're so keyed off on this, is we lived through this. We had the FBI and the DOJ create new categories of perpetrators like every quarter. It's like, oh, it's Q2 now. What's the new release from the FBI? They updated their software. What are they working on this month? Oh, this month it's religious, homegrown, violent extremists. Well, what kind of religions? Well, whatever we want. And if you just say something bad at a church, we're going to come investigate you, especially if you're Catholic. No problem. And they just create it. And the next one, homegrown, domestic violent extremists. Well, what's that? Oh, these are right-wingers who have flags flying around in their houses. That's, oh, okay. Great. So you're going to investigate all these things that are like, speech adjacent and then criminalize them. And there's no need to do that. We don't need to do that. There's already laws. Okay. Trump already sues everybody under defamation and other, libel and slander laws for the things that they're saying, and is having success on that. So we don't need to create this whole new category of hate crimes. Now, again, if we just want to say, well, we're just going to use all the same tools that the Democrats do, and if you even want to, get a little bit more black-pilled on it, you can say, well, everything's very Machiavellian, and this fiction of living in a democracy is kind of just a little fiction that Americans are told as a bedtime story that, oh, you participate in your democracy. Oh, we do? We have self-governance? Huh, that's interesting. We do? How come we don't know anything about what the FBI is actually working on, or the CIA's budget, or what they're doing? Do we ever vote to give hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine? How come our votes are being watered down by illegal aliens and by rigged elections? How come the CIA is rigging elections by creating fake letters? Oh, we have our own governance, even though we have no vote, because other people are voting multiple times, and we have overseas voters coming in. Okay, so the whole thing is just kind of like a nice fiction that we all live under, and it's better than the alternative. Okay, so I'm not like saying throughout the whole system, but if you want to get Machiavellian on it, you can just say, all right, well, we'll just use all the same tools that they use, and we're going to be in power, and so we're going to use this power responsibly, or something like that. But I just don't think that that is ever, the long-term plan. There's shifts in power, and so when you start anchoring in hate speech, like the Democrats want hate speech. That is a victory for them. They want that across the board because they hate free speech. So as the administration comes and just kind of, saddles alongside that, like, oh, gosh, here we go. And I'm not saying that I don't want justice, and I want people to be held accountable for their speech. Words matter. They mean things. So if you're going to say something, good for you. And if you want to share your opinion about Charlie Kirk, good for you. I hope you post a lot of it so we know who you are and nobody can employ you again because you're a murderous freak. So we've got that. Now, Kash Patel was also out testifying today in Congress. He says, if you're going to come at me, Senate Democrat, Judiciary Democrats, use facts, all right? All you have is disinformation and lies. I'll see you prime time in front of the world. America deserves a better brand of justice, and I'm giving it to them. Bring it! That's from Kash Patel. All right, so he said that. Now, we're seeing some reaction to some people's free speech. Clemson posted this. Clemson University has dismissed 2 faculty members following a thorough investigation of inappropriate social media content in response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We fully acknowledge the concerns raised regarding the timing of recent personnel decisions. Every deliberation reflects the university's unwavering commitment to conduct and to conduct all actions in full compliance with institutional policies and the principles of due process. Clemson remains resolute. We want a safe, respectful, and conducive environment for academic excellence. So, yeah, your faculty, exercise your free speech all you want. But if you're kind of endorsing murder, you really can't teach kids because they don't know if you're going to murder them or not. Now, even Arnold Schwarzenegger came out and gave an appropriate response. So for somebody who's not, a right winger, many people would say he's a Democrat or just a rhino, a Republican in name only. But Arnold had something to say about this, and I thought this was a very nice message.
I was very, very upset that someone's life was taken because they have a different opinion. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, this was a great communicator, a great advocate for the right, for Republican causes. And he had such a great way of communicating with the students that agreed or disagreed with him. And I just thought about, it's a human being. A human life is gone. And he was a great father, a great husband. And I was thinking about his children. They will only be reading about him now, instead of him reading to them bedtime stories. I mean, it's just unbelievable of what is going on. So I was shocked when I saw this, as we all were.
Yeah, we all were shocked, and it was horrific. So we also have this Mike Johnson coming out. He says we should debate policy without smearing opponents as Nazis or fascists. Here was the Speaker of the House over on with Face the Nation.
I think if we all adopt these practices together and we turn down the rhetoric, we cease with this idea that, policy disputes are somehow an existential threat to democracy or the republic. We stop calling one another names. I mean, calling people Nazis and fascists is not helpful. Look, there are some deranged people in society, and when they see leaders using that kind of language, so often now, increasingly, it spurs them on to action. We have to recognize that reality and address it appropriately. And I'm heartened to know, Major, and to see that many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle are stepping up and saying that and addressing it. I think this could be a turning point, frankly, to use Charlie's term, for the country. And I hope that's true.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's not true, Mike. They're not even thinking about actually moderating. Many of them are doubling down on it. And you've got a lot of their influencers and a lot of other influencers writing articles about stuff. You've got the Nation and all these people saying it's not something to mourn and we're not going to tone it down. And until the Republicans back down, we're going to keep shooting people in the neck, evidently, is what's being implied out there. And it is a nice thing to say, right? Let's everybody just calm down and make things okay. But Charlie just got shot in the neck. All right. So we're not going to be calm on this and just relax until we start to see some consequences for what has been building over the last generations that have created and festered this type of ideology. Why are the liberals in favor of death? 25 plus 17, 42. Is it? I think so. So you add all of that in, and that's a sizable portion of Democrats who want this person, who want the left to continue or at least be accepting of political violence in America. So the numbers are just, awful. And of course, what are we going to do about it? Mike Johnson could form a committee or something, but who knows what he's going to do? Probably nothing. Just sit here and continue to lecture us with platitudes about toning it down after our people are getting assassinated left and right. Here is Marco Rubio saying, well, the visa revocations are happening. And we mentioned this yesterday. America will not host foreigners who celebrate the death of our fellow citizens. Visa revocations are underway. If you are here on a visa and cheering on the public assassination of a political figure, prepare to be deported. You are not welcome in this country.
We are not in the business of inviting people to visit our country who are going to be involved in negative and destructive behavior. Okay, so why should, if I invite someone, if we invite someone to visit the United States of America as a student, as a tourist, as whatever, then they have a different, the standard they should be held to is very high. We shouldn't be bringing people into this country. We should not be giving visas to people who are going to come to the United States and do things like celebrate the murder, the execution, the assassination of a political figure. We should not. And if they're already here, we should be revoking their visa. We are not in the business.
Absolutely right. And we should be revoking a lot of visas just in general. Again, if you got a parking ticket, we don't like bad parkers. Get out. All right, so that is what's happening. We see Rubio and Pam and Cash and others say that they're on it, and we'll see where it goes. But as it stands, I think this confirms a lot of what we've all been feeling in general. And now we're witnessing it materialize on the scene of college campuses where they're shooting and killing people like Charlie Kirk. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends, and see, hopefully, I don't know, hopefully there's a reversal of fortune on this, but we're not optimistic that they're going to change anytime soon. People, I think, who've reached this point are probably pretty committed. Once you are team murder of political opponents, how do you come back from that? We'll see. All right, so now, speaking of these people, let's talk about it. The armed queers of Salt Lake City have started to delete their accounts and gone into hiding. We've got a bunch of details on who they are, what they stand for, and these posts from their social media accounts also shared here today. They're telling us that they have deleted their social media accounts, and they did that the day Charlie Kirk was killed. And here's some of their posts that people grabbed before. Armed queers, Salt Lake City, with the logo, AQ, with bullets. They said here, on another Instagram story, Charles James Kirk, Mr. College Dropout, who's had more success than any of them, we saw this one yesterday, does not know what's coming. Tomorrow, be ready. This isn't a threat, it's a promise, remember? And so that person, we saw that was being investigated by the FBI, and apparently that was an armed queer. So they had 6,600 followers over on X. You can see they are over on Instagram. They posted, armed queers are a revolutionary LGBTQ organization dedicated to defense and such stuff and success for oppressed people's movements. Join us. Linktree. Let me see if that's still up. I doubt it, but let's just see if it's up. Linktree/armed queers SLC. Wow, it is still up. They removed everything. Yeah, that's about right. All right, so their link tree, this is what their link tree looks like. So there's nothing there. Oh, man. Where'd all the links go? Why'd you guys delete them? Yeah, we know why. So that's not even there. They had a bunch of posts on there. They had 6,000 followers, 160 posts, and they've nuked their account. Authorities are now probing them, reviewing online activity of this group and others. One of them is called Armed Queers, Salt Lake City, a Utah-based group. And here's what they look like. Oh, my goodness. With the medic bag. Got it. All right. So they're also hosting forums, protect trans children, and we're going to make your straight children trans, whether you like it or not. They have events, Armed Queers, Salt Lake City, hosting forums amongst themselves. And here's their little calling card. Isn't this just amazing? So the 6 principles of Armed Queers, Salt Lake City. All right, so here's what they stand for. What are these symbols here? It looks like kind of like a little, anyways. So 6 principles. Here's 1. The armed and militant protection of queer and trans communities and all oppressed people, whatever that means. I don't even know what it means. The end of capitalistic oppression and exploitation and the movement towards a socialist society. These are these people. They also want, number 3, trans liberation from the gender binary and biological essentialism, not assimilation. They're friggin' nuts, man. What is this? They want to be liberated from the binary system and biological essentialism. So they want everybody to just be kind of a neutered individual, right? All the distinctions between men and women gone, all of the biological essentialism, like the things like, you know, like you're born with certain body parts and certain hormonal profiles, and we have different chemicals in our bodies that our bodies make for us and all these things. So they want to just forget all of that. You're just a neutered like robot. Chop your genitals off, chop your breasts off, and just be this transhuman kind of creature that society creates under scalpel and pharmaceuticals. And they want 4, housing as a human right. Yeah, lots of this, right? Everything's a human right. You have a right to everything, including housing, and necessity not to be profited from. And so put an end to landlordship. So these people are mad at their landlords. Okay, just go buy some property, make some money and go buy some property. Be your own landlord. So they want government housing. It's a human right. Everybody gets housed, including all the illegals and trans. They also want to abolish police and prisons as they serve as nothing but oppressors. These are these people. And here you go, number 6, the end of the bourgeois, which is the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, according to Karl Marx, shall replace them in this new communistic society. Assimilationist LGBTQ organizations, the start of radical queer and trans organizing. And look at this person's disgusting fingernails. What a disgusting person. Of course, that's what they would be doing. Wash your fingernails out. Wash your hands for once in your life, you disgusting person. According to archive materials and reporting, the group promoted events in 2023 that featured imagery and rhetoric aligned with radical trans themes. And in past interviews, a group representative said the organization's activism was grounded in opposition to racism and transphobia and capitalism, and they accepted personal risk in service of that mission. Now, sources also with knowledge of the investigation told investigators that armed queers took down at least 1 social media account on the day of Kirk's death. Law enforcement officials are reviewing whether any individuals or networks connected to the group or to other online communities, including gaming platforms and social pages, and we saw that yesterday with Discord, had prior knowledge of or provided material support to the shooter, Tyler Robinson, who was dating a trans dude. Federal and state authorities are assisting local investigators. They've also collected and cataloged a number of social media posts. We talked about that story yesterday. Several of those posts have now been deleted or made private. Law enforcement sources caution. They say, well, some of the material appears ominous. Much of it remains unverified, maybe hyperbolic. And as we saw yesterday from Andy No, he posted explaining that even one account just like did that every day, right? They're like, oh, something's going to happen on this day. Something's going to happen on this day, and just like got one randomly. Officials have said they're exploring whether the shooter's relationship with his trans roommate may have intersected with all those things. And we already saw that yesterday with that Churm Burm account that was following the trans roommate, who was also retweeting, "We got him," from Charlie Kirk. So who is that dude? State officials have confirmed that investigators continue to review electronic messages and other evidence relevant to the motive. A lot of this stuff is unverified, unofficial. And so, yeah, there is clear political expression. Like, you're allowed to organize, right? Organize. We have free association. We can create our own groups. But were they assisting in the murder? We'll have to find out. Authorities have not announced criminal charges yet. Of course, they will soon. Now, more on this group, okay? So shout out to Data Republican. You know who she is. We're going to repost this at the top of our timeline in case you want to follow this right now. She posted this amazing thread, and she explained, you know what? This armed queers situation may be connected to the UN and to the State Department. Actually, it's not a may, it's confirmed. She says, first, we want to credit this person here also, called SK Double Dub. Shout out for the crucial tip. And they'll be doing a podcast on that soon too. So when you go check this tweet out, make sure you follow her as well. Now, here's what you need to know. Armed Queers SLC is under investigation for possible foreknowledge of the assassination. Their leader is this person called Ermia Fanian. And she was recognized by a State Department affiliated NGO called Utah Global Diplomacy as a recipient of the 7 for 17 award for advancing the UN's 17 goals, which I guess is to arm queers in America. Utah's Global Diplomacy has since scrubbed her presence from their website, nuked it. Unknown when this purge happened, but the receipts remain, and this is the person. Ermia Fanian. Utah Global Diplomacy. So we know how this goes, right? It goes like there's one major funder, usually the American taxpayer, goes to like USAID, goes to the State Department, funnels it out to a ton of different organizations, funnels it all back down to a trans militia who may have killed Charlie. Interesting. So they said Utah Global Diplomacy is one of the middlemen, says that this is a proud to announce our first 7 for 17 award winner, Ermia. The 7 for 17 award recognizes young Utahns who are working to achieve 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in Utah. Whatever those are. Yeah, here you go. Check it out. Says Ermia Fanian is a trans liberation and feminist political organizer. So why is the UN funding that crap in our country? Why do we allow that to happen? Why do we allow foreign money coming in to fund all of this type of stuff? Is it tax exempt? Where's it going? So work has included organizing around the abortion struggle and creating research studying the conditions of gender oppressed people at the hands of state institutions. So in other words, do we give money to the United Nations? Does any American dollars come into that? And why are we allowing this propaganda to come into our country? So Data Republican says this is what pops up when you search for her name in connection to Utah Global Diplomacy. They scrubbed everything. She's not a graduate. She was one of the first people to get it. Now nobody wants to talk about her. It was on there. This looks like it's from a Google cache, right? She's a trans liberation and feminist political organizer who's getting funded by foreign entities to come in here and change American politics and to figure out why trans people are oppressed. Like, no wonder they think that they're so oppressed or need to organize. They're getting tons of money to do so and tons of support. You're a recipient. You're a 717 founder or whatever it is. Oh, gosh. Okay, if none of this infrastructure existed, maybe they wouldn't exist. Maybe they're being propped up by them explicitly. And yes, she was an organizer with the armed queers. Here you see, she clipped this article. Yep, the protest was put on by Students for a Democratic Society in response to the presentation. Another article, the entrance was guarded by 10 police officers. And here, this article says, Ermia Fanian, an organizer for armed queers of Salt Lake City, stated the struggle for queer and trans liberation is far from over. And it's a struggle that cannot be stopped by the state. What do you mean? You're going to revolt against the state? It cannot be stopped by the university administration, she said, and it certainly cannot be stopped by right-wing events or organizations. Today, we fight for trans rights, so that tomorrow we stand in our trans power. It's one of the weirdest cult freak shows you've ever heard of. So here, again, she posted over here, Ermia Fanian. Here she is, all over the place. Political organizer and educator with armed queers, Salt Lake City. She referenced it. Salt Lake protests. Ermia was there, an organizer with armed queers of Salt Lake City. Another one, disruptive protest. Ermia Fanian is a student at the Utah and works as an organizer for armed queers. Okay, all over the place. Now she's running away from them because she's like, oh crap, we killed Charlie. So per the 990 form for Utah Global Diplomacy, Data Republican, who got the data, says it's a nonprofit. It's a partner with the U.S. State Department. Okay. So Utah, it goes U.S. State Department, Utah Global Diplomacy to trans militia groups to cultivate emerging leaders and diplomacy initiatives. So in other words, she was selected to help shape U.S. foreign relations. Okay, that's what they said, not Data Republican. Here's the form. To promote and respect the understanding between the people of Utah and other nations. Yeah, UCCD serves as a nonprofit sector partner with the State Department's professional and cultural exchange programs. Yeah, we got it. And they say right there, their goal is to help shape U.S. foreign relations one handshake at a time. And, you know, I'm getting real tired of all this foreign money here. I don't care where it is, or people going on these trips to foreign countries. And I think there's like 250 people, 250 state legislators in Israel right now. It's like, what are you doing? It's a little too close for comfort. Anyways, so Data Republican says Fanian was selected as the Utah Global Diplomacy First 7 for 17 award winner, honoring her work to advance UN 17 sustainable goals. I'm pulling together the exact nature of the work, and so here it is. She's getting, you know, money, it looks like, from us. Utah Global Diplomacy got most of its income in government grants. What a disgusting thing. Utah's Council for Citizen Diplomacy promotes an understanding between Utah and other nations, and it's coming from the U.S. government. Look at that. Government grants. There you go. $500,000 goes right over there. Now, she also finds mention of Fanian on a UN website where she was a speaker at an affiliated event. So she was there talking about LGBTQ stuff. In fact, she moderated it with a bunch of other people. And she was also honored as a young diplomat of Utah. Now, she's trying to trace the exact award, but it seems they've applied for awards at the Utah level as well. So our federal government is now funding her organizations, both at the federal level, and the states are doing it too, saying their entire 7 for 17 site seems to be scrubbed. Look at all these programs. They deleted everything. How come? Well, we know why. Now, very ironically, she also appears to have co-founded the Utah chapter of March for Our Lives. David Hogg, if you're serious about gun control, you might want to kick out this person who runs an armed pro-gun group. David Hogg's best friend is arming the trans. Now, many others have done research on this woman, and SK Double Dub, thank you for the tip. Now, we're talking about a young woman honored by the State Department affiliate NGO, put forward as a foreign policy leader, and she was running an armed ideological trans militia group at home that's revolutionary, that hates capitalism, that wants to see the bourgeoisie thrown out and organize to make that happen. None of this is to suggest the State Department had any involvement in this assassination. No, we're just funding it. But this is the kind of person who is picked from a young age on staff to the State Department, tagging Eagle Ed Martin and Harmeet Dillon. Yeah, she's a Palestinian immigrant and an express communist. That's great. Can we deport her? Great question from Data Republican. Yeah. So why are they here? Iranian is what they're saying. Interesting. Iranian. So an Iranian person. And Jammies also posted this. They deleted their Instagram, Jammels. They deleted their Instagram, Armed Queers, calling them a socialist LGBTQ plus collective. They were founded in the summer of 2020 with all that BLM money that came in. And they describe themselves as revolutionary, anti-capitalist, anti-fascist. They call for queer self-determination. Here's a lot of their signs. DeSantis is a fascist man. And the Dragon book ban. Yeah. Good for you guys. Look at them. Just look at them. All right, Jamels. Guns is a core strategy. You've got that. Founders and Instagram, they deleted the whole thing. Fani and also, wow, they're shooting guns with their COVID masks on. That's fun. My name is Armia, she said, and I'm a student at SLC. For the past 3 years, I've worked as a socio-political organizer that our State Department has been funding, and maybe Utah has been funding, and co-founded March for Our Lives, and of course, they are shooting pink pistols. So that is the group, and they're under investigation. They deleted a bunch of other things. Shout out to Elle at some B I know over on X. She's awesome. And she's been digging into these groups as well. And she is explaining to us that these groups, they organize via these zines and pamphlets. And so she chronicled a lot of these things, right? And so they kind of write these newsletters. These people fight. I thought you were not allowed to say that F word. Can you say that word? All right. So Defend Pride, Direct Action Handbook, and they're all getting organized. Stop the violence. Queers fight back because they think they're getting killed all over the place or something, even though they should look at their suicide rates of the trans people. How come they're killing themselves so much? I don't know. Stop the violence against yourself. Stop pumping yourselves with hormones and killing yourselves. So here's more, right? They have a how to resist transphobia and gender fascism. And they've got, it's a whole organized operation. There's like 300 of the magazines over there. Some are very old, some are quite new, and they're organizing, they're armed up. They want to, they basically are revolutionaries, okay? They want to take over the country. It's an anti-American terroristic group, if you wanted to say that, because they want to overthrow the government. So they said that the J6ers were leading an insurrection in America. They didn't have anything even remotely close to this. Did the J6ers have a little stupid revolutionary card like this? That they're saying, we're going to overthrow capitalism. We're going to abolish the police and take over the country. No, they were there protesting a rigged election. And everybody got censored in the aftermath. Remember that? So you couldn't talk about it. That's an entirely different situation. Exercising and petitioning your government for a redress of grievances, peacefully protesting, most of them who were invited in. And most of them were not charged with violent crimes and had trespassing charges, which is like something that you could have at a bar in Old Town, okay? And it does happen all the time. They just said, oh, it's a Capitol building. So they turned it into like the crime of the century. It was not. So never, nearly remotely this organized. This is an organized insurrectionary group. And again, we've chronicled a lot of this. I mean, I think there's been so much political violence from these maniacs that we forget about some of the highlights, like the Chaz and Chop. Remember this? Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone? When they just took over certain portions of cities. Remember that? And where was the insurrection crying about that? Nowhere. The People's Republic of Capitol Hill. It's our land now. It's like a literal insurrection. And they just looked the other way on it, and they just were upset about a 4-hour riot. So we know what's happening. Shout out to Data Republican and to Jamels for these awesome reports and for sharing these things. Those are at the top of our timeline. If you want to follow those along, same with Elle's post, so you can read some of the literature over there and familiarize yourself with these people. Now, here's more from Data Republican. She also says, major breaking part 2. There was a 2025 trip of these armed queers, and they went to Cuba. And here's what they said on their trip. Well, if we're terrorists, we're proud to be terrorists. And she's got the deleted video. There's this one, Ermia Fanian and an unidentified man named Connor. They talk about a bunch of things. The Palestinian students at Cuba's ELAM, they're studying revolution in foreign countries. And we invite them in. Oh yeah, no, diversity is our strength. Bring them in here. Alongside medicine as well. Brigadistas from around the world being brought in for revolutionary orientation, okay, to overthrow America. How every aspect of Cuban society is dedicated to training organizers. I've been to Cuba. I was very fortunate. I went on an adult field trip down there. And there's nothing to preach about, quite honestly. It's a dump. It's beautiful, beautiful country, amazing people, but communism is a dump, okay? and are open about the terrorist label to the point they lament U.S. institutions do not allow them to speak in such a way. Very upset. So I guess they're going to shoot people in the neck. Now, the trip was run through the National Network on Cuba, linked to the Cuban state, has the U.S. NGOs as members, many of whom are linked to Neville Singham's NGOs. And we saw Luna was demanding that that guy get investigated over from China, and his financial networks also get unearthed. Now, the Armed Queers is currently under federal investigation, and Fani was honored by Utah Global Diplomacy, a State Department-connected non-governmental organization, NGO. Now, not to be confused with Andy, no. These are the people who are handpicked to run our State Department. As always, patience as the thread comes together. And so here's a little short clip.
And I think that school really probably forms consciousness for a lot of people.
All right, so they've got some music in the background. So I was really surprised by how seamlessly this all happened. And they're talking about why they were there. And she then starts to say,
and I think that was also what's so cool about Mayday Brigade, which...
Oh my gosh, is that a dude? All right, anyways, so I don't know. So is that a trans... Okay, so anyways, in the above video, she also describes how Palestinian med students in Cuba studied revolution alongside medicine and how they were recruited for revolutionary orientation. Now, in the same deleted video, they recount Cuban med students declaring, if we're terrorists, then we're proud to be terrorists at an official school event. And the transcript is there, says, before I go, I'm using John Solomon, and John Solomon is also digging into that. So shout out to John Solomon. Says, yep, armed queers. Says they're fighting capitalism. And their Facebook page exists. Their public Instagram was deleted. And videos have been scrubbed all off the place, off the internet. How come? Yeah, very curious. All right, so that's what is happening with the armed queers. They've deleted a bunch of stuff, and they were also... Yeah, here's another story. This is from Citizen Watch Report. So that you can see the screenshot. This account does not exist anymore. And the New York Post was reporting on that one. We had this report also from Rocky Mountain Voice saying that they were training, I think, near where Charlie was killed. They posted photos. They have their core principles. We've read through them. And so you get the gist. Enough of the armed queers. We got it. Now, Andy was posting this. Andy, no. He said, after J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller promised to crack down on violent criminal far-left networks, Crimeth Inc., the collective that acts as the voice of American Antifa, is afraid. They say radical leftists haven't done anything wrong and that this is like Adolf Hitler consolidating power. They operated openly. They incited violence on this platform for many years until Elon took over. And they've mostly been banned here, but they still run ThinkX Workers. Now, the group makes and disseminates attack guides and radicalization text used by Antifa to recruit people. They also make guides on how to procure and make your own cross-sex hormones. One of its leaders is called Shane Becker. What are these people doing to themselves? Its texts have been linked repeatedly to criminal, violent cells and networks. They claim 2019 Antifa gunman as theirs, was one of their own. So don't know if Cash Patel's looking into it. Hopefully they are. Crimeth Inc. And they're saying, we're freaked. We must not simply identify this as fascism. We must act accordingly while there is still time. What does that mean? You're going to go shoot some more conservatives? So these groups are everywhere. And we also had questions about this fella, who is George Zinn. And I looked up his case today to see if he's gotten charged with obstruction. Still nothing filed in Utah that I can see, and I haven't seen much here. But now it's being reported that when he does get charged, we're seeing some leaks about what this was. And this guy, George Zinn, who was arrested, apparently was actively trying to distract the cops. So he was a part of it by his own admissions. They say during a police interview, Zinn admitted, I did not kill Charlie, but he said he wanted to cause a distraction, okay? To draw attention from the real shooter. That's a co-conspirator in this. And even if it's not exactly connected, what was he doing? Was he also part of somebody else talking to him? Right? Is it compartmentalized in some way? The faux shooter made similarly strange and opaque comments after being transported to a local hospital, saying he wanted to be a martyr for the person who was shot. Those court papers stated. We haven't seen him yet. Police said his initial comments delayed the investigation into Kirk's killing and took up law enforcement resources. He's charged with obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony. And here's his mugshot. He said he shot him, but I don't know, said some officer. His image spread across the internet. Many thought he was the assassin, but he was a political gadfly, and we got all of his details over here on the Substack as well, including his old charges. So you have this table of contents over here, and we've got one of the witnesses is George Zinn, and there it is, George Zinn right here. So we got his original charges, and this guy's got a laundry list of just criminal cases out of Georgia. You can see this is the docket for all the cases. Bunch of these filed 22, 16, 15, 13, all the way back to 1995. He was charged with trespass earlier in August. And so once he gets charges, we'll keep this updated. But that's who we've got, who is now admitting, essentially, that he was a distraction. He was part of the operation as just, whether he was on his own or whatever. He wanted to interfere with the finding of the discovery of the actual shooter. And so Benny Johnson clipped this one from us from yesterday. We saw Dan Bongino was out on with Fox News talking about the Kirk assassination.
There appear to have been multiple warning signs. You just laid out some of them. There were people in his network, friends and family, who had stated that he had become more political, that he had become... at some parts, I believe some of his coworkers had stated that he had kind of detached himself when the topic of politics came up and walked away from them. Family members said he'd become more political, leading us to believe that this ideology had infected him and had taken over. And he was just intent, it appears, from the data we've accumulated and the channel and that note, which we have some evidence may have existed before based on the communications in that channel, that his target was obviously going to be Charlie and that people knew in advance. The question is, again, I just want to go back to what you asked before. Did they know? Were they sure of this? Or did they hear this and just write it off? That's what we're going to have to find out. And that's what we're investigating now. Bill, this investigation is just begun. This isn't even the beginning of the beginning. Yes, we have a subject in custody. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty in our constitutional republic. However, this is not done by any stretch. Our men and women out there in the Bureau have worked tirelessly all weekend. I just got back to D.C. Last night. And, Cash and I were out there on the scene. We walked the scene. We went through every single component of it. We saw the evidence up close and personal. And we went out there to be able to make command decisions with our team on the ground. And I think the process, although not perfect, of course, I think the process went pretty well considering we got him in 33 hours.
Okay, yeah. 33 hours. And luckily, Dad was helping with that. So here was the FBI as well on with Chris Cuomo. Vigilant Fox clipped this one for us. And here's what the FBI had to say about this recently.
Charlie Kirk's murderer. Do you believe it was just this individual, or is there proof that there may have been a group behind it?
We have forensic evidence that ties this individual to Charlie Kirk's murder. It's an ongoing investigation. Because the arrest is made doesn't mean the investigation's over. So we are looking at everything. It's been out there that he was on gaming platforms or other social media. We continue to investigate those. At this point, I can tell you we are very confident in saying he was the lone gunman and the lone actor on campus. Now, if people influenced him leading up to or his mindset or whatever, we're still digging into that. And we're going to investigate every lead. We're going to interview everybody we can find to talk to him. And we're not discounting that, but we have no evidence to lead towards that presumption right now.
Charlie Kirk's murderer.
Okay, so
do you believe it was just this individual, or is
quiet in terms of identifying anybody else or giving us hints that it's going that direction? It's just kind of the standard stuff. ongoing investigation. We're going to keep looking into it. But here was more. We saw yesterday there was a major Discord group that came out. Gunther Eagleman clipping this one, saying yesterday we heard that there were more than 20 people in that Discord group and that the shooter, Tyler Robinson, made a confession, actually was there saying, sorry guys, I did it. You know, thanks for all the fun and laughs, you know, thanks for help, whatever. And he made those posts. Now, some people were saying, oh, those are just jokes. These are just people just, you know, it's kind of like, okay, you killed him, you know, okay, whatever, you killed him and all the things. Or maybe not, right? Maybe it's actually they knew about this and they were encouraging him to do it. We want to know who was in that Discord group. Were there any feds in there? What was going on? So Holly was asking Kash Patel about this in Congress in the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing today.
It's done in this investigation. Is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic. Let me just turn to the broader question here.
Yeah, interesting. So more than 20. What size group was this? And the bigger the group gets, the more likely it was filled with feds. So we'll, of course, keep our eye on this one, but interesting developments as we're learning more about these groups that are now suddenly going dark, kind of hiding their materials, deleting their bios. Leader doesn't want anything to do with them, and even their Instagram account got nuked. So the question, of course, is why? What was their role in it? They're obviously revolutionaries. They're going down calling themselves terrorists. So what is being done to stop the funding of these groups all throughout the country? We shouldn't be paying a dime for it, and all foreign money that's coming in should be scrutinized under FARA regulations, because they're influencing Americans, not on behalf of Americans. That's foreign money coming in to achieve UN goals. Those are not our goals. They are the UN's goals. And so we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. We'll see what the FBI is able to dig out, but they're on the scent, and it's a disgusting scent indeed. All right, so let's now change gears just a little bit and talk about some legal developments on some of the other cases that we've been covering here, including this one. Lisa Cook survives for now. We have a 3-judge decision that came out. We'll see if it goes back to the full panel or if it goes up to the Supreme Court of the United States. But this is part of the journey on the path to determining who actually runs the Federal Reserve. Are they really an independent entity that is immunized from any executive oversight? In other words, they're above the executive branch because the president can't fire them for cause. And if that's true, Is that constitutional? How does that even exist? The Federal Reserve was created by an act, not an amendment. It didn't create a fourth branch of government. It exists in this pseudo state that nobody's wanted to touch or define up until now. It actually is an executive branch agency. And so the president has the right to execute the law pursuant to the Constitution and to fire Lisa Cook. And the judge who's going to explain this appropriately to us is Judge Katsas in the dissent on this decision that has now come down from the District of Columbia Court of Appeals in the Lisa Cook case. Trump fired her for cause. He has the right to do that. And the cause is discretionary up to the president, as codified by congressional statute. So here's what they wrote. What we're going to do now is say that the motion for a stay is denied. Okay, so Judge Gia Cobb, her sorority sister at the lower level court below, they kind of, are like, I guess, dedicated to each other for life because of their sororityness, pledged. She said she can have her job back because her mortgage fraud is not for cause. It happened before, and you can do whatever you want. You can commit any types of frauds or crimes or murder anybody or whatever. As long as Congress doesn't catch you and you get through and you discover it after the fact, you're good. You're immunized, is what Judge Gia Cobb had to say. Now, they asked for a stay. That has been denied. And so we'll hit just the highlights on this, but I wanted to share with you the dissent because it's another burner. And here's what they're telling us. These are two lib judges, Childs and Garcia. They said, back on August 25th, President Trump came out and he found that he's going to fire Lisa Cook for cause. Now, in this court, the government does not dispute that it failed to give her even minimal process. Okay. So they're going to make this a due process. Oh my gosh. So that is notice of the allegation against her and meaningful opportunity to respond before she was removed. And so the district court, Judge Gia, found that this removal violated the Fifth Amendment due process clause because you removed her too fast. Okay. You fired her too quickly. Now which is ridiculous. The president can only fire her after there's a hearing and like a bunch of like other people process it and then say to the president, okay, now you can fire this person. Then those other agencies are essentially the president. Because what if they say, actually, you can't fire this person? So then those agencies have more power than the president of the United States. And if they're unhappy with the president firing people who are under the executive branch, which is exactly where the Federal Reserve is, even though they try to pretend it's not, they identify as not being under the executive branch, but we know what they are. Then they say that Trump can't do that. So who is more powerful? That's constitutionally illiterate. It's like dividing by zero. It doesn't work. So the conclusion is correct, they say. She was fired too fast. And so for that reason and other unique features of this case, I deny the government's request for a stay. And they're going to give us some background on it. And you can just see it's just due process. Okay, so you fired her too quickly, in other words. They don't want to get to the merits of the cause, but let's go to the dissent. Okay, so we got the background on it. Let's see what the dissent says. He's going to flesh it out for us. Fast forwarding to page 12-ish. There it is. Judge Katsas, writing the dissent, which I think is ultimately going to be the winning argument here once this goes through SCOTUS, says the president removed Lisa Cook from her position as governor of the Federal Reserve because she had apparent misrepresentations when she was applying for home mortgages. Now, the lower level court preliminarily enjoined the Federal Reserve Board from removing Lisa. We're going to keep her here. You can't remove her. The lower level judge. It also held that pre-appointment conduct, okay, so as long as you commit the crimes before your appointment, that is not cause. So as long as you commit your crime before you get in there, as long as you're past the end zone, you're good. The lower judge also held that Cook enjoys a constitutionally protected property interest in her office, which is illiterate. Now, in my view, both holdings are mistaken. This is America. You don't have a property right to your job. It's not titles and patents of nobility that you get to pass down forever. well, I'm a board of director governor, and so I have a 10-year term, and so it's mine. And if it's not mine, then I can give it to somebody else or whatever. It's ridiculous. It's offensive. So I would grant the government's motion for a stay pending appeal. It says, first of all, the equitable balance tips in favor of the government, and you guys are wrong on the other acts. So here's what this judge writes. The Federal Reserve Act creates a board of governors. 7 governors, each appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Now, Federal Reserve governors wield substantial power over the economy as a whole. It's crazy, man. It's like the fact that this exists, like we never talk about it, right? We always like, why is our economic policy of America divested from Americans? You might disagree with, a president coming in and changing economic policy, but that's our decision to make. Our president should have the say on that. And if you don't like the economic policy, then you can see, okay, we're going to do that right now, by the way, right? Trump is exercising some of his economic powers with tariffs, and we're going to see the consequences. So then Americans can say, oh, we tried tariffs and that was great. Or we tried tariffs and that was terrible. But that's economic policy that the president can set. Trump wants to lower interest rates or do those things, that's fine. If it wrecks the economy, well, that's buyer beware, right? We voted for that. If that happens, or maybe not, maybe the president is a better steward of economic policy because the president is closer to the people than an unelected board of governors. So we think about it all the time. It's like we got 435 Congress people. We got 9 Supreme Court justices. We got 1 president in the cabinet. All these groups have a ton of scrutiny on who they are and what they're doing. But these 7 governors on the Federal Reserve, like you don't even know who they are. Me too. I don't even know. What do they do? Where are they from? What's their backgrounds? No one knows. It's like this secret, really, cabal that nobody ever talks about because they want the independence of the bankers in the Federal Reserve. It's ridiculous. And again, you might, want to bring that back in. And there's a lot of literature and a lot of people. Well, before the Federal Reserve, things were just tumultuous. We had high inflation. We had bank failures. We had all those things. And now the Federal Reserve, oh, wait, we still have all of those things. So thanks. So here you can see this judge writes. That's what we have. Federal Reserve, they wield substantial power, and it's not even accountable. We don't even vote on them or anything. Among other things, they serve on the Federal Open Market Committee, which implements monetary policy by buying and selling securities, and they set national interest rates. Now, pursuant to the act, okay, it's the Federal Reserve Act. It is not an amendment. It does not create a 4th branch of government. Governors serve 14-year terms. Okay, so it's like more powerful than the Senate, which are 6-year terms, unless sooner removed for cause by the president. And that's what the statute says, specifically, section 242 of the U.S. Code. For cause by the president, quote, that's it. It doesn't say for cause for only offenses that happened after you took office. In 2023, President Biden nominated and confirmed Lisa Cook, who's allegedly a mortgage fraudster and a plagiarist, according to many people, to her current term as governor. In 25, the director of FHFA, Bill Pulte, said, well, looks like she committed mortgage fraud, sent over a referral to the Department of Justice. And Lisa Cook is coming out now and saying, well, it's like funny. It's like I went to Zillow and I got an estimate. And when I was on Zillow getting an estimate, I entered in second residence and it gave me the mortgage thing. And like, I have a record of that. So I was looking at it. I got a loan estimate, right? She didn't actually go to Zillow. She got some estimate from somewhere else, but it's the same concept. It's like I got an estimate for the thing. And when I got an estimate, I put it in this way. So that means that when I actually signed and executed the legally binding document, notarized and confirmed that it's all true and honest, according to the penalties of perjury and criminal charges, this should give, indicia like to her intent or something. It's like, come on, give me a break. So they referred this over to her some 2 years before her appointment. According to the allegations in June, Cook obtained a $203,000 mortgage to purchase a property in Michigan that she promised to use as her principal residence for at least 1 year after the date of occupancy. Then a few weeks later, she did it again because she was going to get appointed. I think she was working for this, right? She's like, I need to get all this stuff figured out. So June 2021, she's working to get appointed. She's like, I got to clean up my financial affairs. And so she starts doing all of this, starts offloading some cash, put some down payments, buy some property so that it can sit kind of and materialize over her next term on the board, says a second $540,000 mortgage for another property in Georgia, probably right next to Fani Willis, who also is a fraudster, which she also promised to use as her primary residence. So 2 for 2. What an idiot. Can't even figure out how to complete mortgage documents properly. Mortgage of a primary residence are typically eligible for lower interest rates than are other mortgages, which is why she executed them that way. So in light of these allegations, Trump removed her for cause. He said that the allegations against Cook call into question the competence and the trustworthiness of her as a financial regulator. So then Lisa sued. She claimed that the president lacked appropriate cause. You can't remove me. Who do you think you are, the president? She further claimed a constitutionally protected property interest in her position as governor, which is ridiculous, entitling her to an adjudicatory process prior to her removal. So she moved for a TRO and her lower friend judge granted it. Now, Judge Gia, she construed the motion as one for a preliminary injunction and she granted it. Says you cannot remove her in any way. Give her her email, give her all of her documents and all the things. So this judge is overruling the president, which is wild. The court reasoned that Lisa Cook was likely to succeed on both claims. She said on the Federal Reserve Act, the court held that a for-cause removal does not permit removal for any misconduct before the appointment. So you can do whatever you want. As long as you make it through, you're good. Even if they discover it after the fact, they can't get rid of you. On the due process claim, the court said she did have a protected property interest, entitling her to a hearing. And finally, the court found that all the remaining injunction factors favored Cook, her sorority sister, and BFF. So the government sought a stay, and now the dissent is analyzing this. They say the government is actually going to win. Gia and these other judges are dead wrong. Cook first alleges that her removal violates the for-cause requirement in the law. Now, the government doesn't challenge the constitutionality of that requirement. They say, no. The only question that we need to answer is what does the words literally, okay, this is what the law says, quote, for cause. What does that mean? For cause. Does it mean for cause, but only for actions and activities that occurred after a person took their office? No, it doesn't say that at all. Does it say for cause, but only after a full hearing and notice and opportunity to be heard can the removal be effectuated? No, it doesn't say that at all. It says for cause. And if Congress wanted it to say those other things, they could have written it in there. And you know what? They could still write it in there. They could just go change it right now if they wanted to, because it's just an act. It's not even an amendment. So they can just go do it. If they're so unhappy with Trump and his removals, just go change it. And then he can't remove anybody again, except for your stupid things. Of course, that would be unconstitutional. Okay? Because they know that. That's why they didn't put it in there. Because it is the president. If you say the president is subject to certain requirements and certain limitations, then that are not constitutionally mandated, okay, by some act of Congress, then now you're stepping into separation of powers problems because you're making somebody else superior to the president. Somebody else has decision-making abilities that are greater and beyond the president. Now, the act does not provide governors with a statutory cause of action for challenged removals. So the act doesn't say, well, if you are removed, you can have this recourse, right? Congress will set this up for you. And by the way, a lot of these other regulations are for people that are not the president, right? So maybe you're entitled to a hearing and all those things. Like if some subordinate fires you or something, right? Like somebody, Attorney General Bondi fires you or whatever. Well, okay, she's not the president. She doesn't carry that same power and authority. So maybe you can make the argument that she does have some rights or something, right? Not in this case, but generally speaking. But this is the president. That's why it's the president who can remove you for cause. And it's just a structural, logical, functional requirement of how our system works. Nor does the APA afford a cause of action as well. So accordingly, to satisfy her removal, Cook must satisfy the standards for raising an ultra-virus claim, which is Trump is acting out of the law. And they say that's basically a Hail Mary, okay, that rarely succeeds, and she's trying it. Now, among other things, Cook must show that her removal is the product of an extreme legal error, and she has no other means to seek judicial review. Now, obviously, as to the first requirement, only error that is patently a misconstruction of the act would count. That's not what's happening here. In my view, there's no error at all, much less an extreme error. She was removed for cause. Now, her claim also turns on the meaning of the phrase for cause. She says, what does that mean? So on that question, our review is de novo. Okay, so we're going to analyze this free and clear of anything that her sorority sister said. We're going to look at it fresh, of new. It's going to be brand new look at it. We read those words when we do textual analysis, according to the ordinary, contemporary, and common sense meaning at the time of their enactment. That's how we interpret the law. Now, as originally passed in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act included a for-cause removal protection for board members. Congress repealed that requirement in 1933 but reinserted it back in 1935. Now, in 1935, then, the ordinary meaning of for cause, quote, in the context of the power of removal from office, was simply some cause other than the will or pleasure of the removing authority. That is, some cause relating to the conduct, ability, fitness, or competence of the officer. And they're looking back to the Black's Law Dictionary, which was written, the third edition, back in 1933. The judge says, let me go back. What did the dictionary in 1933 say? And that's an interesting distinction, okay? What happens a lot, for example, is when a new president comes in, like I think Obama and Eric Holder did this, or they at least talked about it. They always all talk about it. I can't remember who did it and who didn't do it, but they come in, they fire all the U.S. attorneys, or they're asked to resign, okay? Because they serve at the pleasure of the president. So he doesn't need for cause to ask for the resignation of the U.S. attorneys all across the country. They do because they want to appoint their own people. And often they leave or they get fired, like Maureen Comey, who's an assistant U.S. attorney, got fired. So that's, at will. You're gone. New president. It's just, I don't need a reason. You're gone. So they put a little bit of shackles on the president, which you could argue is also unconstitutional. But they just said, look, just you come up with a reason, okay? As long as it's not just like, well, I don't like that person and I want to gut the Federal Reserve Board, which I think they should be. The Federal Reserve shouldn't exist, actually, the way that it's currently created. But if they wanted to, yeah, you could do that too, because you're the president. Otherwise, somebody else is justifying what cause is in your executive branch. And if they don't like that, their check is not to have a judge shove you back in. They can impeach the president, okay? Because the president runs the executive branch. But we're having these conflicts because they created this fake entity that they wanted to kind of immunize, even though they know they can't. This meaning was also settled by 1913 as well. When you're talking about for cause in 1910, they figured it out. With reference to the power of removal from office, this term means some cause other than the will or the pleasure of the removal authority, okay? It's got to be something related to conduct, ability, fitness, or competence of the officer. But if someone can say that is bad cause, if a judge can say that that's not good cause, then their judgment supersedes the president's judgment. And then they're running the executive branch. This broad definition gives the president more removal authority than other removal provisions. In particular, it affords the president broader authority than a good cause requirement. Doesn't even have to be good cause, okay? It's just cause. That alone also leaves the president with ample authority to remove someone. It also gives the president more removal authority than inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance that has come up in other laws, in other cases. In 1935, Congress deliberately chose a for-cause requirement over the more restrictive inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance. Like Congress could have put those words in there. They didn't. And they can't. Exactly, because it's the president making the decision. The president plainly invoked a cause relating to Cook's conduct, ability, fitness, or competence. The allegations against her are mortgage fraud. If she acted knowingly, that's a felony. And fraud is an excellent reason for removal, according to other case law. Now, moreover, even absent intentional misconduct, they're saying, well, you have to prove that she intended to do it and convict her before you remove her, convict her of a crime, she needs due process and all the criminal charges must be vindicated in a court of law. Any misstatements in formal applications for six-figure loans are at least concerning. And the president specifically concluded that it cast doubt on her competence. And so therefore, that is cause. But Judge Gia, the sorority sister, she took a different approach. She concluded that pre-appointment misconduct doesn't satisfy the for cause because she carved out something for her friend. Even Lisa Cook did not argue that position, for good reason. It's ridiculous. Imagine a governor who amassed his great wealth and stellar reputation based on financial fraud discovered only after he took office. Imagine a governor who's discovered to have bribed a senator to ensure their confirmation. Can't touch us. Sorry, that's not cause. Or imagine a governor who's discovered to have committed murder before taking office. Such appointment and pre-appointment acts clearly would relate to the competence and be enough for cause. Now, that is enough for the government to succeed on Cook's claim. The district court did not presume to review any of the factual support that was articulated by Trump. She didn't listen to him at all. She said that power would have raised a host of difficulties. And normally, courts do not look behind a facially valid justification, okay? They can't probe the mental state of the president because, yeah, they're going to be substituting their judgment for the president's, and they're not the president. Nor do they normally assess evidentiary sufficiency either. But those questions are presented. Like the judge didn't get into that because she can't substitute her judgment for the president. So she just created an artificial temporal limitation saying that you can only get stuff after the appointment, which is just ridiculous. And it's fake, right? She just made it up. It's not in the law anywhere. Now, the government is also likely to succeed on her due process claim. No, you fired me too fast. Supreme Court has long held that public offices are mere agencies or trusts, okay? They are not property. In Taylor, the Supreme Court said, you can't come and claim a property interest in being a governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The view that public office is not property has been generally entertained in this country. Saying an officer appointed for a definite time has no vested interest or contract right in his office. And finally, the court in Taylor also concluded the nature of the relation of a public officer to the public is inconsistent with the property right. You're a public servant temporarily in this position. You don't own that seat. Cook invokes more recent new property cases that relate to other cases, but she is no mere civil service employee who is part of a broad swath of lesser functionaries. She's an officer of the United States within the meaning of the Constitution. And not just any officer, she's a principal officer who must be appointed by the president with advice and consent of the Senate. She's supervised by nobody except the president. Referencing the Constitution, she serves as a Federal Reserve governor and a member of the Federal Open Market Committee, both which wield significant power over the economy. And in my view, she's much more akin to the governor of Kentucky than to a security guard in some other entity. Now, my colleagues acknowledge that principal officers of the United States generally have no property right to the officers they occupy, but they say Cook is different. She's special because she is the most unusual principal officer. She's a little different, one who is not removable at will. Now, in my view, that consideration does not distinguish the Taylor case. After all, even at that time, Kentucky had a state entitlement to serve for 4 years, and he could be removed from office only in the extremely unlikely event of impeachment. And so his tenure was at least as secure as that of an appointed officer who may also be removed. But in any event, the dissent says the employee property cases would not help Cook, even if they were extended to principal officers. If there is a claim, we must add what is the claim in? What is the property interest in the public job? Could a public office be considered private property? What? Of course not. The employee removal cases do not upend the common sense intuition that one does not have a private property right in their public positions. And so therefore, since she doesn't have a property right, and since her property is not being deprived of her, since she doesn't have one, there is no due process claim. She's not losing anything unlawfully. And so the remaining factors also counsel in favor of a stay. In this case, Trump's removal of a principal officer is going to cause a risk to the government. That's why the Supreme Court has recently, if Trump is not allowed to do that, it's going to harm his government and our government. That is why the Supreme Court has also handled these appropriately in the National Labor Relations case, the Merit Systems Protection Board case, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and more. Those cases involved removals without cause. But the harm to the government is more magnified here, where the removal is not based on policies, but on accusations of misconduct that call into question her competency. And this is for cause, and this is what Trump is doing. Now, she says that her position, okay, she's super special, is singularly important in American government because they're the Federal Reserve, these 7 nobles who know better than we do about economic policy because they're so smart, and they've stopped all inflation from happening. Thank you. They've stopped all of the bank runs. We don't have those anymore. Everybody can, have affordability. We have no homes are available in plenty for everybody. We have no bubbles and busts anymore since 1913. It's all been perfect. And they're singularly important. We know it's hogwash. In Collins, the Supreme Court declined to peg the merits to removal, to individualized assessments and more. But my colleagues in the majority, they suggest that the nature of Cook's claims diminishes the importance of the government's interests. So her claims are more important than the government's. But nothing distinguishes this case from the other removals. Yeah, baby. Wilcox and Boyle. They're all high-ranking officials. The Federal Reserve is not special. And so for these reasons, this judge dissents. And we're going to keep our eye on this one because I'm certain that Trump will appeal this to the Supreme Court. I'm sure that this will be coming very soon. And the Federal Reserve board meeting, let's see when the next one is. Tomorrow. Today. They're meeting today. Scheduled today. The 16th and the 17th. So, looks like Lisa Cook will be at this meeting, and we'll see what comes out from that. But I'm sure Trump will be appealing this to the Supreme Court or to the full panel. The next Federal Reserve meeting is going to be set. This says, that's not right. I don't know when the next one is, but coming soon. So I think the dissent is ultimately going to be the argument that carries the day. Everybody else is just covering up for their sorority sister at this point in time. But we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends, and see what we can do to get rid of the Federal Reserve's independent power, whatever that means. As this case progresses, we appreciate you subscribing, and we'll see you back here on the next one. Now, we're not done yet. We got one short update over related to Fani Willis, and then we're going to hear from you. And I wanted to pull up one additional post from Mr. Jeffrey Clark that we will start off with over here because this was a nice post as well. Oh, man. All right, so 1 second. We are transferring the article because this was a good post starting here. Fani Willis loses the big one. She wanted to stay on this case, prosecuting President Trump and the other RICO indictees, and now that's not going to happen. Fani Willis blown out. Now, what happened here, of course, is she wanted to take this to the Supreme Court of Georgia and has now lost. Here's what we've got. Courtesy of Jeff Clark, a man who was put through the ringer in this case. He posted this. He's now working with Trump again. Says, I'm pleased to announce that Big Fani has been permanently disqualified from prosecuting the indictment that she brought against President Trump, me, and many others, some of whom took plea deals. The Georgia Supreme Court denied cert to Fani, who was attempting to get that court to take her case so that she could try to get undisqualified after the Georgia Court of Appeals threw her off the case. And we remember Judge McAfee, who was just ridiculous, said that Fani could stay on the case as long as Nathan Wade left. And so he resigned like this. He's like, yeah, I'm out, man. I'm going to take my 700 G's and I'm going to go get a new car, which he did. So all of that was allowed to continue. Then the appeals court came down and said, no. Fani, you have a very odor of mendacity, very stinky odor, and you now have to be removed as well. So then she appealed that to the Supreme Court. They're saying, we don't want to hear your case. The Court of Appeals was right. Get off. So the case now goes to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia, and they're going to decide on a replacement for Big Fani. So it's going to go. So some other prosecutor is going to have to pick this up and go with it. I'm not sure that's going to happen. Praise the Lord for progress in this case. It should have never been brought in the first place. No, of course not. It was part of a RICO of Democrat politicians abusing their offices to go and weaponize them against Trump. And you can see it on full display with Fani's case, Letitia's case, Alvin Bragg's case. The list goes on and on. You know the remainder of them. So the Supreme Court came, and as it relates to all of these people, Roman, Schaefer, Cheeley, Meadows, Trump, Latham, Giuliani, Clark, and Floyd, Supreme Court now denying the petition for cert from Fani. All justices concur except a couple, and the case goes nowhere from here. So Fani's office responded to this, says the Georgia Supreme Court on Tuesday declined to review Fani's case, denying the petition. Some people, the Chief Justice and another one, did not participate. The decision means the lower court decision remains in place, which disqualifies Big Fani. She said in a statement, Fani, that she's going to transfer the case now, which would be to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia. Fani's office said, well, I disagree with the decision of the Georgia Court of Appeals and the Georgia Supreme Court's divided decision not to review it. I respect the legal process and the courts. And so accordingly, my office will make the case file and evidence available to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council for use in ongoing litigation. I hope that whoever is assigned to handle this case will have the courage to do it. What the evidence and the law demand. Well, they really should get the case file and say, holy crap, this thing is completely rigged. This is an abuse of power. And they dismiss the charges against all the people and then indict Fani. That would be the right way to approach this. But that appellate decision overturned McAfee, who said Nathan Wade had to get thrown off. Georgia Court of Appeals reversed McAfee. They said, yeah, the remedy that was crafted by the trial court, McAfee, to prevent the ongoing appearance of impropriety did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety that existed at times when Fani was exercising her broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring. Like, the fact that moving forward it's not going to be bad doesn't mean that up until this point it wasn't bad, Judge. While recognizing what an appearance of propriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated, okay? No other remedy will suffice to restore public trust to Fani's office. And this is good news for everybody. Steve Sadow over on Trump's team responded to this, and here's what he said. Here's a comment by me as Trump's lead Georgia defense counsel saying, the Georgia Supreme Court has correctly denied review of the Georgia Court of Appeals decision disqualifying Big Fani and her office as prosecutors in the Fulton County RICO case. Willis's misconduct during the investigation and prosecution of President Trump was egregious, and she deserved nothing less than disqualification and probably jail. This proper decision should bring an end to the wrongful political lawfare persecutions of the president. And yeah, I mean, the 4 criminal cases are now done. Like, this is the end of that. I mean, this could get picked back up by another prosecutor out, who's going to be on that council. But we'll see if they do. I think that a lot of people will just say this is way too big of a case to bite into. And this is a nice justification to just, oh, we don't want it. We don't want it. Nobody wants it. And the thing just peters out. But Fani is off the case. And of course, she was the real driving force behind it. And we got questions about her and her collusion with the January 6th Select Committee and whether they were conspiring to create and manufacture charges where there shouldn't have been charges brought, abusing her office doing so. President Trump calling out Fani saying she should be prosecuted.
It's great. The court just ruled that she is a disaster. She's a disaster with a boyfriend. The boyfriend that she paid $1 billion for his expertise, but he never did it before. Now, she should be prosecuted. What she did to people, forget about me, what Fani Willis did to innocent people, patriots that love our country, what she did to them by indicting them and destroying them, she should be put in jail. She's a criminal. Fani Willis is a criminal.
True. That's true. True statement. Thank you, Mr. President. We'll see if any inquiry continues. We know there's going to be a new J6 committee forming. We've got questions about what the old J6 committee did to conspire with Fani and a bunch of other people to try to take out President Trump and an entire political party. So we'll keep our eye on this one to see if any new charges come down the pike. Maybe Fani, since she loves Rico so much, will enjoy her time as a defendant. All right, so my friends, what a beautiful day it has been. If you're just joining us, we appreciate you being here. Today, we covered 4 different segments. We, of course, talked about the political violence that's happening by Democrats, that has been endorsed by Democrats. Huge swaths of the party think that violence can sometimes be justified, and they're in favor of it because it's always or usually acceptable. Okay, so 34% plus all these unsures, that's a huge portion of Democrats who love political violence. We ran through some reaction, what Destiny's saying. We saw what the PB&J governor was saying. So it's online people, it's officials. Pam Bondi was talking about free speech. We're trying to understand really what their framework is. They're throwing around a lot of words right now. We don't really know if they know what those words mean or how they're using them. But Harmeet Dillon and others, we talked about the bake the cake situation, Trump going after, even supporting the hate speech, I think, development. So we'll see where that goes. Rand Paul, I don't think we played this one. I think I skipped over this one, but here's Rand Paul talking about this. You're not entitled to a job.
Encouraging other people to do it. And really, that ought to be taken down, and social media ought to be able to take that down. If people are saying this in their workplace, people say, oh, people have a right to say things. Well, actually, they don't necessarily have a right to say things. Many people have in their contract what we call a morals clause to their contract, or a conduct clause. My guess is you have something in your contract that says you have to behave in a certain way in public. Most people do. If you're in the military, you have a conduct code that you have to adhere to in your speech and the way you present yourself to the public. So I think it is time for this to be a crackdown on people. And like I say, it's perfectly legal and legitimate, particularly if it's part of the contract process.
Yeah, and there's consequences for speaking. That's why you spoke out, okay? That's why you came out and said what you said, is because you had power in that. It felt good to express yourself, whatever your disgusting truth was. Thanks for getting, those demonic forces out of your brain and onto the page so we can see what is going on in there. And Rand Paul is exactly right. So we talked about that. Then we talked about the armed queers of Salt Lake City who have deleted a lot of their online accounts. The leader of the group, one of the key organizers, has abandoned ship, that wants nothing to do with them. And the FBI is looking into them, it sounds like, aggressively. We heard a little bit more from Kash Patel today and Dan Bongino and the FBI saying they're looking into over 20, maybe many more, who are on the Discord servers and the group chats. And of course, we're going to keep our eye on this investigation until we are satisfied. We also have the Lisa Cook case. She is surviving for now, so she's going to make her way into these Federal Reserve meetings until the Supreme Court weighs in on this, but may take a bit of time for that to happen, so we'll see. And then Fani Willis loses again, and so a lot of trouble over there in Fulton County for this ridiculous prosecutor. Her big, she wrote a whole book about this. Remember, she was doing all the interviews. She's on Rachel Maddow talking about how amazing she is. She lost. It was a rigged prosecution. She was sleeping with her lover, paying him $700,000, texting him, having working lunch meetings, sick, in Fulton County offices. Whole place should be disinfected. But all right, anyways, now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. Let's see what you say about all of this. It is a beautiful Tuesday. Thank you for joining us early on the morning stream and for being here. We got some great comments and donos in the house. What's going on? We have Carrie B sending these in over from locals. Thank you for that. from Carrie B. Bucky's is Rome. What's up, Bucky's is Rome? Sharing the Fani Willis stuff. Boom, got that. Thank you, Bucky's is Rome. Thanks for linking it for us. Here's one from Bucky's. See if you can pick out the Democrat. A, B, C are your options. Or, like, I don't know, maybe D, all the above. Bucky's, AG Bondi, better shut this crap down and confiscate the funds. Sharing this one from Alex Soros, saying, off-year elections decide who runs our schools. And so go find that. Bucky says, what's up with New York City dropping charges against Luigi Mangione? Yeah, we saw that. Definitely that headline come out. Thank you, Bucky's. Spuds, Pritsker equals flounder and vice versa. Flounder and vice versa right there. And what is that from? I'm not sure what that's from. But anyways, thank you for that one. That one came in from Spuds. He kind of looks like him. I think, yeah, he looks like him for sure. This old guy says, Pritsker won't own his prior statements about Trump. They make him a morbidly obese. That makes him a morbidly obese coward. I was, however, a bit upset at Bondi about her statements about free speech and hate speech. I was glad to see that she came out today to clarify. Yeah, I thought so too, this old guy. It kind of feels like they're scrambling for a framework to address this, to talk about this, and like hate speech is just kind of like the easiest one to understand. It's like so unsophisticated. She's like, it's hate speech. What are you talking about? You're an adult. Just use your words. You don't just, anything that you don't like just doesn't get quantified as hate speech. It's ridiculous. So I agree with you, this old guy. What's up? E. Texley says, Andy's Substack is called No Comment. I like that. He is probably the best source on what he calls Trantifa. Yeah, he is good at it, man. He does great reporting, and he's been on that beat for a long time. So, like, he's very familiar with the evolution of it. NY says, I signed a public book of condolences for Charlie. A local malcontent obviously didn't like it and has made several calls to my hospital. Ask the doctor to watch his neck. Wow. Would that possibly be prosecuted under Bondi's description? Yeah, I mean, I think that actually might be just a threat, like threatening and harassing, right? So that alone might be prosecutable under your state laws. You know, in other words, you don't need hate speech for that. Like if somebody's calling your office and threatening you, ask the doctor to watch his neck. Why? Is he going to shoot you on the way to your car? That's absolutely worth investigating. Bucky's is Rome. This is insane. I think Luigi's going to be let off by the judges and the jury. And so definitely we'll probably do a Mangione update. Thank you for that, Bucky's. I saw that happen today. Bucky says, older man initially arrested, confessed after initially confessed. Yep, that's the George Zinn story. Thank you, Bucky's. We hit that one today too. Knox says, happy Tuesday, all. Problem solved, says Babylon B. McGruff the crime dog goes undercover in a furry terrorist cell from the Babylon B. So there's going to be a little McGruff the crime dog. He's going to dress as a furry and go into the cells. Thank you, Knox. That sounds like he's going to need to be disinfected too. 1917 Beamer. They are already covering the Charlie Kirk crime scene. Also, George Zinn, the guy said he did it, is charged with, I'm not sure I saw that charge, but thank you, 1917 Beamer, for that info. Spuds, if I remember correctly, if there are any disciples of Castro left in the armed Cuban communist community, they weren't exactly too fond of homosexuals and transgenders. Neither are the practitioners of Sharia law. Though the AQs might get one-time invite to the Sharia rooftop parties. Oh, gosh. Yeah, we've seen those, right? What they do to gay people in some of those other countries right off the roofs, which is horrific. Bullet still not found, but school is paving over the area. And the security cameras were taken as well, etc. Crazy, Knox. So they're just clearing it out. So cleaning up the crime scene. Are there FBI agents with hoses spraying it down too all over the place so nobody has any evidence of anything? Yeah, it's good. This is going to be a weird case. It's starting to feel like. I mean, there's a lot of other extensive possible involvement that is out there, but there's also this tension to just, it's just this one dude. Like, just lock it up, close it down. It's all settled and super cut and dry. So, yeah. Hey, Bucky's is Rome. If the left wanted peace, there would be peace. If the right wanted war, there would be no left. Bucky's from Charlie says, hate speech does not exist legally in America, okay? There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment, so keep America free. Yeah, you're allowed to be hateful too. You can be as hateful as you want. You just can't be criminal. You can't commit criminal acts or cross the line into using your speech as like a tool of criminality, right? That's going to result in actual incitement or that actually constitutes a true threat, which are criminalized. So you can say there's hate speech. You can hate whoever you want. This is America. God bless America. NY, I thought federal employment jurisdiction is limited to the Merit System Protections Board. Well, not if you're a historic and special Federal Reserve governor who commits fraud and has sorority sister judges protecting you. Then you get to file in Article 3 courts. Sharpie Guy, Rob, what happens to Cook's vote as the Federal Reserve votes on interest rates today? That's a great question. Trump nominated somebody else, so are they going to take his vote too? May have already happened, actually. Can Trump check her vote after he wins with the Supremes? Like, I think there's argument that Jerome Powell is not honoring the president, like the authority of the executive branch, and is committing misconduct himself. A critical vote, considering that not lowering interest rates cost the American public trillions of bucks, right? Yeah, I think so. And I think more than that, right? It's being used as a political tool against American policy. Just Rhonda says, on behalf of our Rhino governor, Spencer Cox, I apologize that he allowed, with open arms and funding, the taking of your tax dollars. Cox is not who and what many believe he is. He is an apologist, a Democrat friend, as in he supports them far more than he supports us. I'm still annoyed that he gave all of the law enforcement updates this last week. In my opinion, that was not his place. Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith is a good man, and he should have been the person giving the press conference. Yeah, I agree with you, Just Rhonda. I think that that Spencer Cox was kind of exploiting the Charlie thing in a way to make a political speech in that second press conference, I think, that we heard. Like, he spoke, then he came back out and he gave like this big political speech about, like, you know, platitudes. And it's like, all right, fine. Like, yes, prayer, yes, all this. We get it. But it was more of a political speech than anything. Chubby says, they're so ridiculous with the Cook mortgage fraud. She started the fraud when she signed the documents with the false claims, and that was before she was placed. But then she continued the fraud, great point, with every payment she's made since then. So there's the for cause related to the mortgage fraud. Yeah, she's been paying a lower interest rate on multiple properties ever since she's been in there. Did she call and rectify and say, actually, I'd like to pay a little bit more since these are not my primary residences? No. Zone Girl, what's up? She is an ongoing fraud like the Obamas appointment who has not paid taxes. They corrected that. Before getting a confirmation, they knew they were in the wrong. She knew she was in the wrong as well, from Zone Girl. Chat with me. Hey, before I leave, I was just thinking about what Rob said concerning the trans community being militant activists. When you consider the number of school shooters that were trans and recently released information about the trans attacking ICE, is this more than just about Charlie Kirk? Have the trans been organized in conducting all of these operations? Maybe. Maybe that's why they're deleting their social media profiles and having their leaders abandon ship. Because they were, I mean, they are organizing. They're writing pamphlets. They're going to Cuba. They're training. They're calling themselves revolutionaries. They say they want capitalism to be stopped, the police to be defunded, and that they're under attack and they're never going to stop, right? Is what they say. Uncle Bozy, if the DOJ would go ahead and indict her, that would give her something to keep her busy. I think you're talking Lisa Cook. So if Lisa Cook would be indicted, then she, might be in federal custody. So she really can't go to the board, the Board of Governors meeting, right? Thank you for those. And Carrie B, 51K, thank you for clipping those for us this morning. You're amazing for doing that. We also had some YouTube donos come in. What's up? Cheryl Johnson says, hey, Rob, have you compiled data on right-wing versus left-wing violence? If so, where can I find it? If not, is that on your radar? From Cheryl Johnson. The only stuff I've compiled on this is over at Substack, but no, I haven't done an analysis on right-wing violence. So I haven't gone through all the shootings and said these are right-wing. We're just monitoring right now the leftist violence, and we've seen a lot of it. So I'm sure there's other left-wing sources that are covering all the right-wing violence and having a list of those things. I'm not going to spend my time going through those because I think we know who the culprit is. I'm sure there's right-wing violence as well. But the stuff that has been most in our faces have been Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on on that distinction per se, just because it's a lot of effort and we're chronicling all the left-wing violence right now. I'm not saying it's not important or a part of the conversation, but I think there's a bunch of other people doing that. So I'll just defer to them. But thank you, Cheryl Johnson, for that. We do have a compendium of all the left-wing violence on our Substack. So you can check that out over there. And thank you for the nice dono. What's up, Dennis Madera? First Amendment protects your speech from the government, not your employer. All the free speech libos need a civics lesson. Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, they were trying to get people arrested for January 6th. They were trying to get you fired. They went after doctors' licenses, okay? They wanted lawyers' licenses removed just for expressing opinion. I mean, they canceled us. They censored us for expressing opinions about the rigged election, okay? Not endorsing murder, not saying people should be assassinated or being in favor of political violence. But just the questioning of the election led to January 6th, and because there was some violence there, that speech needs to be limited. Okay, and it's just about an election. So like you see how far this goes. Or again, we made the joke yesterday that, you know, they're talking about some woman or her breast, or, you know, Al Franken is doing the little stupid photo, whatever. Canceled, thrown out for those things. Okay, those are just like jokey, kind of just, you know, maybe offensive things, but they're not advocating for murder. And they still wanted you fired. Like, I'm sure if you were out there saying, you know, January 6th was amazing and we should have protested and there should be, you know, a bunch, like they would want you fired from that, right? They were going after everybody back then. And it's not murder. That was a rigged operation, okay? And many of them were tapped on the shoulder on video and invited in and then charged with trespass. We covered it here at length. Red-blooded American. Hey, thanks for everything you do, brother. Have a great day, Rob. Thank you, red-blooded American. Going to be on the road in the car for most of the rest of the day. Going to drive Joey down to Phoenix and then come back up here. And that's why we're here early today. So thanks for joining us. Red-blooded American. Thanks for the nice dono. Jonah Finn, what's up? Liberalism is communism in hiding. Unexpected? No. Yeah, I mean, that's the things, like, I don't, like, if they want to call us fascists, that's fine. I mean, I think many of them are communists, and communism has resulted in hundreds of millions dead. That's not endorsing murder. It's just calling an ideology what it is. Now, with theirs, there's like a clear, they're like, it's not just fascism, you're a Nazi. And what the Nazis did, Trump is doing that now. It's like, okay. Like, they might be communists, they might want to put, you know, all the right-wingers in gulags, but like, that's not exactly happening yet. And when we talk about them, there's no implied approval of murder, as theirs is. Like, political violence is accepted on there, and even in the polls, they even admit it, as we saw today. So thank you, Jonah Finn, for that. 6 months as a membo. Daniel Henry. What's up, Daniel? Code Blue says, you know, I'm a man who enjoys the company of men, but I've voted for Trump all 3 times, and my Glock 23 and AR-15 are for the range and defending individual rights, as my U.S. Army Colonel dad taught me. So, quote, not all armed queers. From Daniel Henry. Well, Daniel, shout out to your Colonel U.S. Army father. We obviously support the Second Amendment, and we're glad that you voted for Trump and are on the right side of a lot of the issues. And I think that you're probably not a murderous person, right? So, yeah, it's an interesting comment. And I'm glad you get some range time in. And thanks for being here. Thanks for the nice dono. So you're not a part of that group, I think, is where we're going with this. Yeah, what's going on? Thank you, Daniel, for the dono and the comment. What's up? Off-Label Podcast says, Stephen Destiny Burnell has called for more death than Hassan Piker. How is he still walking free? Well, I did see Elon, I think, was calling for him to be arrested, saying he's actually encouraging incitement that's resulting in violence. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to come next, or what Pam's like. Is that hate speech? Is saying Trump getting elected is kind of justifying political violence? Like, you know, what is that exactly? Is that hate speech? What's Pam Bondi going to do? We'll have to see. What's up, Casey Cat? I don't understand how Tim Walz has gotten away with openly advocating for the assassination of our president on many occasions on video. Yeah. The big one was that I was waking up today kind of hoping for some news, and Trump is still alive, you know, just saying. Like, he thinks it's a funny joke. Waters, Schumer, Pelosi, all calling for violent uprising on the streets on video. Yeah, no, they have. Schumer, remember outside the White House explaining, there's a whirlwind coming for you, Kavanaugh. Remember that? From KC Cat. Thank you for the nice dono, KC, for being here. What's up? Daniel Henry, Code Blue is here, says, it's ironic that the left attempts to drape itself with the cloak of reason and yet is utterly bereft of intellectual rigor. No difference between tolerance and acceptance, words and violence, economic and political power, etc., etc. Frowny face. From Daniel Henry. Honestly, to me, it feels like it's the ends justify the means. It's whatever they need to do. They'll say whatever they need to say. And the actual definitions and labels will kind of mutate. They're dynamic. Like democracy means whatever you need it to mean at any given time. You just say, we have to do this to save our democracy. What are you talking about? Abortion rights? Illegal immigration? Ukraine? Save our democracy? Got to support save our democracy. It's like this. It's like meaningless. So when they can redefine the language, then they can push policy in certain directions because people love democracy, right? We're a democracy. Actually, their democracy has been redefined to mean communism now. So you have to do all of these things and give up all of these rights for the greater sake of American democracy. You don't want democracy to fail, do you? So thank you, Daniel Henry, for that. Yeah, and again, like I would like, honestly, a strong Democrat party. Like it'd be great if we could have Democrats who are like, actually, there is no hate speech, Pam. There's only free speech in America. And we're going to stand by that. Like Dennis Kucinich, remember him? Like some of these people used to have some of those beliefs, even if they were, kind of communist adjacent. They still had some beliefs like that. Or what if the Democrats were like, you know what, we're stronger purveyors of the Second Amendment than even the right is. And so we might agree maybe on some social issues, but like the Second Amendment and free speech, like those are ours. And we had like these two parties that were like jumping over themselves to confirm and solidify our natural rights versus creating these new mechanisms of control. Wouldn't it be nice? But we don't have that. KC Cat says, judge dropped 2 top murder charges against Mangione. He faces second-degree murder. Since when is lying in wait second-degree murder? From KC Cat. Thank you again for the Mangione comment. Haven't looked at that one yet today, but thank you for the comment. KC Cat says, there's nobody who loved the Constitution more than Charlie Kirk. I think that's right. I think we love the Constitution a lot, but Charlie Kirk, he also loved it a lot too, So anyways, I get your point. I'm just joking about that. Charlie Kirk, of course, stood for the Constitution and did a lot of amazing work in honor of the Constitution. And even he would agree that this hate speech stuff is pretty ridiculous. Daniel Henry, what's up, Daniel Henry? The left accuses the right of being dangerous idiots. Then they murder a prominent person on the right, live on stream, like Vader killing Obi-Wan. And of course, we know what happened. Obi-Wan came back more powerful than ever, and they cheer. Yeah, it's dangerous and idiotic. Viva's right. Confession through projection. Yeah, I think that's right. And there's, there's like a disgusting realization that happens once you start to see all this stuff come out. You realize, oh, wow, these are our neighbors. These are our coworkers. These are our doctors, maybe. I mean, who knows? And, they're right next door. And they're telling us who they are, like openly. I don't know. I could never imagine myself ever, like gleefully posting a death video about somebody dying. Could you imagine that? Recording a video and uploading it, titling it, posting it. They've done it like a million times all over the place. It's crazy. So what do you do about that exactly? And, if this is going to escalate, like if we're going to go down the path where it's going to result in like outright, war. And again, I don't want this. I'm not condoning this. I just want to defeat them politically. And hopefully they wake up. Hopefully this is a moment for them to realize, oh yeah, the Democrats are murder death cults. There's some realization on there. But if it's going to just be, like a cold civil war in America, then at that point, you start to ask yourselves, what tools do you have available to use against the other side? Because you're in a state of war, right? Now you're fighting for survival. You're not necessarily fighting for like, free speech rights kind of a situation because it escalates. You're in a war. So, I don't want it to get there. But, like even Abraham Lincoln, right? Suspended habeas corpus and things like that because you're in the middle of a civil war. And he's looked at and revered by many as one of the greatest presidents ever. So in a state of war, the balance of power changes. And if you are in the party of power, then you use that power to effectuate your goals. That's why we're happy we're in power right now. Trino Galaxy, Antifa is one of the more violent groups in Germany during the 1920s. Is it really a surprise that they are violent in America in the 2020s? Is that right? Antifa goes all the way back to like the 1920s? I wasn't aware of that. Oni, what's up? Rob, can we have a Charlie emote? Yeah, definitely. I think just Rhonda made us one yesterday. And so we're going to have to get that added 100%. Yeah, it was a beautiful one too. Thank you, just Rhonda, for that. Oni, thanks for reminding us. 14 months as a membo. Oni sent in 20 new membos. Thank you, Oni, for bringing those in. And we're grateful to have you here. We don't see them in the chat right now, but 20 new friends. You know who you are. Oni brought you in. And come on back for the after party because we are going to hang out and debrief for a bit to close out the day with membos. Hey, Nikki P, a little donation towards your generous donation, Rob. Yesterday, we made a donation over to the Kirk family. So if you missed that at the start of the show yesterday, we did pay everything forward that you guys sent in. So if you weren't able to make a donation to Charlie Kirk, we made one on behalf of the Watcher fam. And thank you, Nikki P, for sending in some love. It felt like the right thing to do, 100%. Philip Butler, what's up? Frankensteinism. Yeah, everybody just needs to have different, body parts lopped off in order to make everybody the lowest common denominator, which is basically an neutered human with no real, any points of conflict. Because gender's gone, race is gone. Everybody's just like this neutral person because we're all just lopped off. So thank you, Philip B. Daniel Henry, Code Blue in the house. Thank you, Daniel, for all the donos today. Says, have some sympathy, Rob. All the rent money went to buying firearms. They probably have to keep buying more because they have no idea how to disassemble and clean them, judging by the fingernails, from Daniel Henry. Well, I can relate to that, man. It's like, once you get your first gun, you're kind of like, I need to have like at least like 1,000 more of these. So, it's really hard. Like every time you go to a gun store, you're like, well, how much is that one? Oh, that's all? Wow. I was expecting more. So since it's so cheap, well, maybe I have to get it. So, it's like, and then suddenly like you have no rent money anymore and your fingernails are disgusting because like you buy all these firearms. I don't know. I can understand that. Kellen Miller. Hey, Rob, what are your thoughts on the ruling Murphy versus Missouri saying that they have no standing to sue? Sounds like there is no recourse for First Amendment violations. Kellen Miller, great question. I don't have the answer at the top of my head. Murphy versus Missouri. Don't think I had that one on the radar for today. So I don't have much thoughts on it, but thank you for the dono and for asking about it. Hey, Sevra says, gay, trans, straight, I will die to protect your constitutional rights, but will you do the same for me? If no, then I'll have nothing to do with you. Yeah, and I think that's right. Like if they want to call us fascists and call us Nazis and all those things, that's fine. They can do that. They can create this environment. They have to be responsible for the environment they've created, and it's resulting in political violence. And so now we can use the law to investigate them accordingly. But again, I would like we had even earlier today a huge problem with this hate speech framing because it's like, what is that exactly? There's already crimes. Just prosecute people for the crimes, but we want our base layer to not be disturbed, even in the wake of tragedy, right? And again, I think, some of that stuff like flips if you enter into a state of war, because now it shifts from survival to sort of like civil protection of liberty. So you think of things, it's a different game, right? You're entering a different game, a different set of rules. The rules change. We had one set of rules where there was just civil discourse, Charlie Kirk on microphones. That was one set of rules. And now the rules seem like they're changing. And so if we're not, understanding the situation that we're in, then we can't make good decisions. Amber Mellenbacher says, neutering our dog right now, literally. It curbs behavior, stops reproduction. He'll still be a male. Humans and dogs are not the same. They want to treat people like animals. It's sick. Do better, Dems. I just don't, yeah, I really have a hard time like with the surgeries. You know, chopping like genitals off and like mutilating bodies. It's just, I think there's a better approach. You know, I'm not a trans expert by any way, shape, or form at all. But I think there's probably some, you know, alternatives before you cut your genitals off your body. That feels like just a sick thing that's happening to people who are probably in really bad positions and being taken advantage of by other people who just want their money and to further this cause. It feels very exploitative to me. It feels like people are not in their right mind and they're being abused. Hey, Chill 808, what's up? Welcome aboard, Chill. Mary Ward, thank you, Mary. Thanks for joining up. We'll see you in just a minute. We're going to wrap up here and then have an after party. What's up, Glenn Croy? Rob, find a clip of Schiff and Cash in the Senate, please. So we'll come back on that. I'm sure we'll have some more clips tomorrow of the Cash stuff. Jason Beatty, what's up, Jason? Thank you, Jason, for becoming a member. We'll see you here in just a minute. And T-Rex and Crypto Travels. 1 month as a member. First month's the hardest. It gets easier from there for some people. Breaking whiteness tampering charge and filing for DP. Witness tampering charge and filing for DP. 1 month as a member. T-Rex, thank you for that one. And One Old Guy's Opinion says, why are the streets, businesses, and leftist property not being messed up? Why? Because we're adults, grounded in reality and morality. Jesus is coming soon, so be ready. Endure the course till the end. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. And is Jesus coming? Man, we're all trying to figure that out. Bullwinkle Sprinkles says, Membo for 31 months. Says, Pam Bondi is looking into a lot of things. Pfft, yeah, I know. They've been looking into things. Well, she still had those files on her desk that she was looking into that I don't think we ever got an answer to. Okay, Kellen Miller giving us some background. Murphy versus Missouri is formerly Missouri versus Biden, which we remember that one. Yeah, that was the one by Missouri. That was, I think Andrew Bailey brought that one, right? Was the Supreme Court case that overturned the Fifth Circuit about government pressuring social media to censor people during COVID and Biden's laptop. So Kellen Miller with some more details. Thank you, Kellen Miller, for that one. Have to refresh my recollection on that case, but thanks for asking about it. We got NY says, Destiny's trying to earn more money for his lawsuit. He's getting sued for his depravity. I mean, there's that element to it. It's just, you know, are they just saying things just because it draws attention? Like there's this, you know, in this like creator space, you have to draw attention to yourself, right? You have to, or, you know, do something. You have to be like good at what you do or get eyeballs. And being in the center of controversy all the time and saying the most provocative things is very good for business. I think it's a little, you know, disingenuous unless you believe those things, but maybe he does. So I don't know. Uncle Bozy. Yeah, good to see you, Uncle Bozy. Bucky's is Rome. Live, Charlie's Killer is in a press conference right now. They're saying there's numerous co-conspirators. And so, awesome. Thank you, Bucky's is Rome. So my friends, I'll hand it off to that. We're going to come back tomorrow. There should be charges that are being filed over on this afternoon. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll have the press briefing highlights. We'll go through the court documents, whatever's available. I'm also hoping that like Howard Zinn and some of those other people get their charges published as well so that we can see those. But yep, the cables have it. There is a press briefing happening right now. So we'll pass it off over there. Hey, Shadow Wings is over on Twitch. Good to see you, Shadow Wings. It's easier to listen if one takes the mute off. That's a good idea. Yeah, so that's usually is helpful. Yeah, and Idiot HQ says Destiny and Hassan are calling for brutal, violent murder. I've seen some of the... I saw this one clip of Hassan. I couldn't even believe he said that. And that he was still on the platform. Good to see you, Shadow Wings. Idiot HQ over on Twitch. Great to have some friends chatting over there and joining us over there. Let's see what else we got. Making sure we're not missing anything over from Rumble. What's up to our Rumble friends? Cinnabar. What's up, Cinnabar? Piso Pond. What's up, White Wolf in the house? And we got some great comments over there. Thank you, Neuro D, from on the fort down over there as well. Good stuff. And I hopefully didn't miss anything over there. But if I did, my apologies. And thank you for watching on Rumble. But my friends, okay, we're going to leave it there. We're going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's see what's up on X real quickly before we head over there. And, oh, wait a minute. I think Twitch just posted something. Wow. Okay. So here you go. From Destiny. Unreal. Elon Musk and other conservatives just got me banned from Twitch. My entire income is gone now. So much for the party of free speech. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, they demonetized, so they canceled us for 9 months after January 6th. You guys remember that. Fortunately, I was still practicing law, so I didn't need the revenue or the income. But yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Now, we were never advocating for violence. We were asking about the election. That's all. And even on January 6th, we said we did not like what we saw, as upset as we were. And then we pieced together what actually happened. But it's a little different environment. But YouTube still nuked us. They canceled a bunch of other channels. I mean, we got it easy. At least they didn't nuke our whole channel. They just demonetized us. But hey, Twitch is going on. And I don't know if Destiny's being sincere or not. He's got YouTube channels. He's got a bunch of other stuff, right? So he's got a lot of other income coming in. But he says, Twitch is committed to keeping the community safe. You've been removed for promoting, encouraging, or facilitating discrimination based on protected characteristics, posting a combination of words or emotes to denigrate based on race, praising or supporting a hate crime, which is a weird phrase, and advocating for the exclusion of a group of people based on their disability. So I guess supporting murder is not good for Twitch's business, and now people are looking at it. And Elon tagged Jeff Bezos on that, right? So Jeff Bezos may have gotten involved in that. But yeah, interesting stuff. Okay, so let's say what's up to our friends on X and see who's joining us over there. And then we're going to head over to Locals and YouTube for our members only after party. What's up, Neuro D? Great to see you. Shakes is here. And Peter says, thank you, Rob. Keep exposing these liars. I truly appreciate your work. Thank you, Peter. Really awesome to see you, man. Thank you for saying that. And good to have you here on the X. Shakes. Okay, so here you are. I thought, doesn't matter. I can't handle these judges anymore. Cook has got to go. What's so hard about that? These judges need to be impeached immediately. From Shakes over there on X. Thank you, Shakes. Impeachment would be a good start, no doubt. Hey, Neuro D, good to see you. Thank you, Neuro D, for flagging our Rumble link and sending some love over there. You're amazing. And we appreciate you. But my friends, it has been a good stream. There is a press briefing happening right now. We should have charges later tonight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll unpack all the documents and we'll see what exactly is going on. But for now, we're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and a YouTube members only link will be available if you're a member. Come back and join us. We're going to debrief, see what you have to say, and maybe I can scream for Joey to come down here and say his goodbyes. But we'll be over there, my friends. If you'd love to join us, come join us. Thanks for becoming a member. Thanks for supporting our work and being amazing, being a part of our community as we go through all of this and more. We'll pause here for the evening. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Big shout outs to Carrie B today, clipping for us. K Bean in the house. John, we got Donut Mind Me, Neuro D, Janik, Dog Digger, Just Rhonda, Elliot, and Geegum Geegum, all helping out around here. Very grateful for them and for you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. Thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over, because it's better when we do it together. We'd love to see them here, and we'd love to see you back here again, because we are coming back tomorrow. Should be on a regular schedule tomorrow. So Membos stream in the morning, and then we'll be back in the afternoon. But my friends, until then, I want to thank you for being here, because we are coming back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with seats on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see